more vibrant, amazing people than the seniors served by Meals on Wheels. As a volunteer, you deliver a hot, nutritious meal and a friendly hello to someone just like your mother, grandfather, or next door neighbor. These seniors are inspiring people with incredible stories to share, and they love to see you. The smiles you get back are priceless. Delivering with Meals on Wheels is easy, and you don't have to drive like me for it to be quick. You can volunteer your lunch break once a week or just once a month. With 1 in 6 seniors facing hunger and many more living in isolation, your lunch break can make a real difference. So, America, let's do lunch. Volunteer your lunch break at americaletsdolunch.org.
This message brought to you by Meals on Wheels America and the Ad Council.
Okay, Simon, what are you wearing right now?
Nothing.
That's right. And what do people normally wear?
Clothes.
Exactly. So now Mommy's going to teach you how to dress yourself. Clothes keep us warm, they look good, and if we go out without them, the neighbors will talk. So it's important to know how to get dressed. Here's how it's done. Underwear always comes first, name tag at the back, then pants, then shirt. Get the first button in the right hole or you have to start all over. If you're wearing a tie, it goes over, round, through, and pull tight. Tuck your shirt into your pants and zip up your fly. Socks going first, then shoes right on right, left on left. With shoelaces, just take the ends, cross them over, switch the loops. The rabbit goes down the hole, pull tight, and you're left with bunny ears.
I love bunnies.
Good to know. Now remember, spots don't go with stripes, socks don't go with sandals, and if you've tucked in your shirt, wear a belt. Got it? Why are your pants on your head?
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
So you see, son, good manners are very, very important. Someday, many years from now, when you're a grown-up, you'll be a man. And when you are, you should be a gentleman. Do you want me to go through it one more time?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Exactly. Always say please, thank you, you're welcome, and excuse me. Sit up straight, hold doors open for ladies. If a door's shut, then knock first. Don't burp, don't swear, don't speak with your mouth full, don't reach across people's plates, keep your elbows off the table.
What table?
And don't interrupt. While we're at it, don't stare, don't use foul language, don't call people names, but do remember people's names. Always share your toys, play nice, and cover your mouth when you cough or sneeze. On the bus, give up your seat to anyone who has trouble standing bottom line. Treat others the way you'd like to be treated. Got it?
Got it.
And stop picking your nose.
Most parenting is hard to do in just 2 minutes. But spending just 2 minutes twice a day making sure they brush their teeth is easier and could help save them from a lifetime of tooth pain. For fun 2-minute videos to watch while brushing, visit 2min2x.org. That's 2min2x.org. A message from the Partnership for Healthy Mouths, Healthy Lives, and the Ad Council.
Hey, there he is. How's it going?
I'm having a stroke.
Are you going to shake my hand or what?
I'm having a stroke.
Wow, you're not even moving your arm.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you okay?
I'm having a stroke.
Your face looks weird, too.
I'm having a stroke.
Are you having a seizure or something?
I'm having a stroke.
When someone is having a stroke, they may not be able to say it with words, but their body language will tell you loud and clear.
I'm having a stroke.
You just need to know the sudden signs. Look for FAST, F-A-S-T. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. Or S, speech difficulty. Then T, time. Time to call 911 immediately, because the sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in their recovery. Know the sudden signs. Face, arm, speech, time. Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
Or if that resume was from someone who
worked 12-hour shifts at the recycling company with my dad, who's 72. That taught me a work ethic that I carry with me every day.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone.
Growing up where I did, a lot of things could have gotten in the way of my goals. But I learned to push through, and that's what I bring to work every day.
So maybe it's time we look beyond the resume and look to Grads of Life. Discover new ways to develop great talent that are so much more than what's on paper at gradsoflife.org. A public service announcement brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
Ranger Station, Ranger speaking.
Hi, I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh, okay.
Well, We were building a bonfire, and I saw some, dry brush and leaves around, so, I said to move the bonfire somewhere else, and out of nowhere, Smokey Bear shows up and hugs me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. He likes it when people help prevent wildfires. It hits him close to home. Not everybody gets the hug, my friend. So that's pretty special to get a hug from Smokey Bear.
So it was him. Guys, I told you it was Smokey.
Okay, well, congratulations, my friend. And thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. Waking up every day, lifting him from the bed to the wheelchair to the car to get him to therapy on time, it's no small task between the doctors and the diagnosis, but nothing can disable this love. This is my big brother, my hero. He's part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. See, there's no time for tired. This starts again tomorrow. He'll be waiting for me. I wake up for him. I know he needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community, or call 877-333-5885. Caregiving Resource Center. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
People been saying to your friend, get a different face, and posting on their feed, they're super ugly. The things they say to them online are cruel and they're not true. So tell your friend, I'll stand up for you. Don't worry, I know what to do. Tell the world I see with an emoji to stop the bullies.
Know someone who's being bullied online? Send the witness emoji. It looks like an eye in a speech bubble, and it's in the symbol section near the clocks in your phone. You'll let the world know it isn't cool, and you'll let your friend know you care. Learn more about the witness emoji at eyewitnessbullying.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
It may be hard to believe, but people just like you are already saving money. Feedthepig.org makes it easy. Their simple savings plan teaches you how to start saving without going overboard. So you don't need to mooch off your friends.
You gonna finish that grape?
You mean the one in my mouth? You don't need to stop buying the necessities.
What you're smelling is a natural musk.
Ew.
You don't need to be a medical test subject.
How do you feel? Mostly okay. Sometimes, though.
You don't need to get a second job as a stuntman.
We need a new stuntman. Let's break for lunch.
You just need an internet connection. Don't get left behind. Start your personal savings plan with the tips and tools on feedthepig.org. That way, you don't need to sell your soul to the devil.
$15 is the best I can do.
All right, deal. Brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
When is the best time to talk to your family about staying in touch during a disaster? When floodwaters reach your door? When wildfires are engulfing the edge of your neighborhood? Or an earthquake is destroying buildings? When a tornado is tearing through town? Or a hurricane strikes? Or is the best time perhaps today? During a disaster, you may not be able to stay in touch with your family or friends as easily as you think. And it's not always as simple as using your cell phone. That's why now is the time to take action. Go to ready.gov/communicate and make your emergency plan today. Don't wait. Communicate. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
What are you talking about?
No, it's not him. There is only one more. There is only one more. That's it. One more.
Get her ass!
No!
They saw your team put up zero effort.
Wake up!
Remember in the old days they used to have oxygen for them. Where's the oxygen?
Play like absolute just garbage.
This is the Sports Loudmouths.
Yay!
Man, can you keep it down? I'm trying to introduce here. With Errol Marks and Speedy Petey.
You're not even a has-been. You're a never was. You're a never was.
June 18th. I'm sorry, June 14th. It's getting old, baby. It is getting old.
It's not even June 18th anywhere in the world right now.
June 14th. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouths. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Remember, you can go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including, we are live right now, the Sports Loudmouths, ladies and gentlemen, which airs every single Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. You can call us 631-672-3108. Speedy Petey, what is up?
Well, if it was June 18th, then it would be
Wouldn't that be awesome?
It would be actually two of my family members' birthdays, coincidentally.
Be the weekend, wouldn't it?
It would be Sunday. Yes, it's on Sunday. My uncle is
Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, it's on Father's Day too. Yes, oddly enough, but he has a birthday. My uncle, and then my cousin, one of my cousins that lives in Patchogue, also has a birthday.
By the way,
two different sides of the family coincidentally having June 18th birthdays.
By the way, for everybody to want to know on the whole introduction there, I knew it was June 14th. I just knew that June 18th is Father's Day, and it is a special day. So anyways,
yes.
Before we get into the show, there was a lot of interesting things that have happened over the last couple of days to me. And yesterday, I woke up and I was about to go to work. It's about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. And I go outside. I forgot something in my car, and I had to go back into the house. But I noticed while I was getting closer to my car, there were feathers all over my car, and like bird guts or whatever. I don't even, squirrel guts all over my car. Feathers all. It looked like there was like some kind of civil war with the birds and the squirrels or the raccoons.
Maybe Randy Johnson hit one with a baseball.
And I had to clean off the top of my car. There was like a ton of feathers, and I was trying to look for like bits and pieces of animals. Nothing. Just little itsy bitsy pieces of meat, blood on the top of my hood and my roof, and so many different bird feathers. So whatever happened on, I think it was Tuesday, whatever happened Tuesday was the weirdest thing. So just wanted to let everybody know
maybe
what I was doing.
Maybe Randy Johnson was hiding somewhere and threw a baseball at a bird again.
I don't think it was somebody throwing a baseball at a bird. I think it was some kind of animal fight. It could have been a hawk. It could have been a squirrel being eaten by whatever, a raccoon or something happened. Maybe it was I don't know. Maybe it was a cat. Maybe a cat attacked a bird.
Maybe Snug is on some pranks. Maybe Snug and Kenny are getting a cat and a goose involved.
I have no idea. But we have a great show lined up for you. We actually had a guest that actually called up and told us before the show that he couldn't make it. So we are going to reschedule with him. But at 8 o'clock, we do have a guest. We will be talking to former Broncos, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman, Trevor Pryce. He's been on our show before, should be in the Hall of Fame, and I believe eventually he will get into the Hall of Fame. He has over 100 sacks. I mean, the guy has a long enough career in the NFL to absolutely make it to the Hall of Fame. And John Abraham's still not in the Hall of Fame. There are a lot of good players right now, as we saw Joe Klecko for the first time in how many times was this guy nominated to make it to the Hall of Fame and just completely fell short of it. Right. And now finally, the old timers allow him to make it to the Hall of Fame. So after 20 years? Yeah. And one of the better defensive players in NFL history. So eventually these guys will get in. So let's just pray that Trevor Pryce, and as well as he believes that he should be in the Hall of Fame, and we will get into that a little bit later, and we will get into his thoughts with the NFL and obviously the voters out there in the circle, ladies and gentlemen. Whatever. I don't know how they vote, but whatever. I make a joke about it.
Nobody knows.
Chuck and Larry, baby. in the circle. The circle. You know, Rob Schneider. You don't remember that part in that movie? Chuck and Larry. You've never seen the movie. Nuggets win the NBA Finals, ladies and gentlemen. Not a surprise. All right, and we will get into why I believe that the Nuggets could win back-to-back championships next year, as Jokic, after winning a national championship, well, it is a national championship, it's the world championship of basketball, he said something very interesting. We will get into it. Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup. I was very surprised. Speedy wasn't. He had the Golden Knights winning it from the beginning. I had, after the first round, I have the Florida Panthers going all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals and winning the whole thing. But as they fell short again, like 96. The Rangers officially hired Peter Laviolette as their new and next head coach. Lot to get into with that. Another sticky substance in the Subway Series. This time, it was the Mets, and he was a reliever, Drew Smith. And I know on the Pat McAfee show today, he had some different analysts come on the show and say the Yankees are the only team that cheats. It's the most ridiculous statement. It really is. Stefon Diggs is absent from the Bills minicamp, and Sean McDermott says he's concerned. Here we go. Here we go with these wide receivers that want their bucks and their money, as we saw last year. How many wide receivers were complaining about their pay grade? Right. And then all of a sudden, Deebo Samuel gets a contract. Devontae Adams gets the biggest wide receiving contract in NFL history. And then when it started raining, it started pouring. Dalvin Cook says he will not settle for a $5 million contract with his next team. So he wants 10 or more, and I think he deserves it. Dalvin Cook is one of the best running backs in the league. He's been one of the best running backs in the league for the last, I would say, 3-4 years. Guy can't stay healthy, but he's fantastic and can do everything on the field. And I believe wherever he goes, he could absolutely make some big money. So Dalvin Cook, who might be released very, very soon. We haven't seen it yet. Very surprised. Everybody keeps saying he's going to get released. He's going to get released. And I think it was like over the weekend, they said that they're about to release him.
Well, they finally released him on Friday. Did they release him? Yeah, they did on Friday. It was, but everyone was thinking he was just going to sign with Miami.
I didn't even hear.
Yeah.
I didn't hear anything all weekend long.
Everyone was saying he was just going to sign with Miami right away, and that never happened. So we'll see.
Saquon Barkley says he is reconsidering the Giants' offer of $12 million per year. Is he all of a sudden going to fall to the Giants? I do not believe this. But again, with the money these running backs are getting now, I would take it. I think he deserves the $16 million, but I think he wants at least a 3-year extension to his contract where if he gets hurt, they're responsible to pay him. So let's parlay. Who do we have on tonight?
We don't know yet. Chaz did not reveal anything. Derek said he could not make it.
Bracket Wars. The number 16 seed, John Jones, versus the number 1 seed, Michael Jordan. That's pretty good. That's really good. Number 10 seed, Willie Mays, versus the number 7 seed, Jerry Rice. So a lot to get into today. So why don't we get into it? And at 8 o'clock, we will be talking to Broncos and Ravens Jets defensive lineman Trevor Pryce. I don't know why you put that there. Just say ex-Jet and Broncos defensive lineman. That would be easier. It would flow
leave out the Ravens?
Yeah, well, the Ravens. I mean,
he said he had his best season with the Ravens. So.
Yeah, well, I don't like to mention the Ravens because I'm a Jet fan. And it seems like every single year we play the Ravens kill us. So I don't really like talking about them. As far as the Broncos are concerned, the Jets have a pretty good record against the Broncos. So
except in the 90s.
Oh, well, that's different. I mean, the Broncos had John Elway and that kind of Mike Shanahan as their offensive coordinator/coach. But anyways, the Nuggets. I'm not surprised. Okay. I know everybody's sitting here and they thought, hey, the Miami Heat could give the Nuggets a shot at winning a championship. The Nuggets were far and along the best team in the NBA this past year. They really have been. Nobody can argue that. You want to go up and down the Western Conference. Everybody keeps talking about the Phoenix Suns. At one point, the Phoenix Suns were a lot of people's favorites, including mine and yours, Speedy, when they added Kevin Durant. And when they added Kevin Durant at the trade deadline, everybody thought it was a sure thing. Kevin Durant gets hurt. He was not the same player he was when he left the Nets. And Kevin Durant can't stay healthy for a full season. We haven't seen him been healthy for a full season for 4 years. So I didn't expect Kevin Durant to play all playoff long because of the injury background that he has over the last couple of years. And how about Chris Paul, another guy that can't stay healthy throughout the season and the playoffs? As the Rockets could have won a championship years ago with him and James Harden when they were up 3-2 against the Golden State Warriors, the mean, green, killing machine Golden State Warriors. And what I mean by green is the money that these guys are making now. They're definitely making
what you mean by
of
killing machine is Draymond Green's foot in somebody else's you-know-where.
Or, well, I don't know about that. Or maybe his TikTok where he's showing private parts to women all over the world. So thank you to Draymond Green and his stupidity on the court and off of it. So, but the Denver Nuggets with Jokic, Murray, and Porter, they have the core of players that they can win year in and year out for the next 3 to 4 years. They're that good. And their cast of players off the bench, and Brown, and who had a fantastic series against Miami, really did. And the way they play like a team. And they have one of the most underrated coaches in the NBA. This team could win year in and year out. And everybody keeps talking about Steve Kerr, okay? How great Steve Kerr has been for the Golden State Warriors. Maybe because he comes from the Chicago Bulls. He comes from Phil Jackson and obviously the Triangle. Everybody loves Steve Kerr. But Steve Kerr wasn't the reason why or had any difference if he was the coach or not the coach of the Golden State Warriors on why they won 3 to 4 championships. He was not the guy. But Mike Malone is as good a coach right now in the NBA as any coach. He really is. He preaches defense first, and he loves moving up and down the court. It's speed game. When you've watched the Golden State Warriors, their talent year in and year out, and how they ran their offense with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, when these guys were healthy, they were up and down the court. And they were a really good team defending team. When Golden State won those titles, they were a top 7, top 8 defense in all of the NBA. This Denver Nugget team was top 3 all season long. And when you have a guy in the middle as good as Nikola Jokic and what he can do on the court and even off the court when he's sitting on the bench as a captain, rooting on the players. He was in the final game, what was it, Game 5. The last, 4 minutes of the game? For like the first minute of that 4 minutes, he was on the bench. He was wiggling his towel, shaking his towel, getting his team excited about what's going on in this game. And by the way, game number 5 was one of the sloppiest NBA games I've ever seen. But nevertheless, when your team wins the sloppy games, when your team can find a way to win those games, that is the sign of an elite team. And what we saw throughout the playoffs, they lost 4 games. 4 games throughout the playoffs against the Western Conference best and the Eastern Conference champions.
And they didn't even lose against the Lakers.
What they did, it was one of the best runs in the last 15 years in the NBA. It really was. Go look at the teams they beat. And I know everybody says the Lakers aren't that good and they shouldn't have went to the Western Conference Finals. Maybe true. But they played well in the second round. They beat the Memphis Grizzlies. who was the second best team in the Western Conference. Some people say the third best team in the NBA. They ran right through them in the first round. What we saw throughout the playoffs is just dominance. And each player, even Brown, when everybody says, when we saw the great Golden State Warrior teams, especially when Kevin Durant was there, it was 4 players. It was Draymond Green, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. Throughout the playoffs, especially in the Western Conference Finals and the championship, it was those 3 players that I mentioned, Murray, Porter, and Jokic. And then there was a scheme of players. There was a bunch of different players that showed up in each series and were that 4th guy. Aaron Gordon in the first 2 rounds was the 4th guy. Even in the first game, or really the first 2 games of the series against Miami, he was the guy. And then there were guys like Bruce Brown who showed up in certain games when you needed somebody to pick up the pace for the power forwards, the front 7. The front 5 guys, and your biggest guys were your big man Jokic, and you have Bruce Brown showing up and getting the important rebounds and getting fouled and going to the free throw line over and over and over again. That stops the clock. That gives you time. Caldwell Pope throughout the playoffs defensively was all over the place, defending all different positions, the guard position, the shooting guard position, the small forward position. Jeff Green, when he was playing leadership on the bench. That's what these teams need. You don't need all around a big 3 to win a championship. You don't. And honestly, Porter is not a big 3. Porter's a guy that's going to give you 16, 17 points. He's a good shooter. He's a mismatch at his position. He's a power forward that actually plays like a small forward. And he's very hard to defend around the perimeter because he's a great shooter. He's not a guy that's going to go to the hole strong. That's not the type of game he plays. He's not a post player. He's a guy, because of his size, his ability to shoot the ball, you can use him on the perimeter. You can use him all over the court. That's why the Nuggets are good. That's why the Golden State Warriors for years were good. Because they didn't need to go inside and beat you inside, even though they could. They beat you on the outside. They beat you in ways that you couldn't defend every single player when they were on the court. It was a mismatch with Miami, with Aaron Gordon. Nobody could defend him because of his size and his ability and his athletic ability. Jamal Murray, they had nobody that could defend Jamal Murray. Kyle Lowry, he's old. Butler could have defended him, but Butler was bouncing back and forth with Michael Porter. And then there was certain aspects of the game because Bruce Brown was playing well that he was defending Bruce Brown. And there was nobody in this series that could defend Nikola Jokic. Nobody. Everybody knows how good this guy is. Everybody knows he's the best player in the NBA. We listen, obviously, with Smith talking about it at the end of the game. Both Smiths. The one for TNT and the one for ESPN. Both of them were talking about this guy is the best player in the NBA. There's no question. You can't argue that anymore. But I will say this. Next year, they're not going to slide in. There's no secret about this Denver Nugget team. There is no secret. Everybody knows how good they are. Everybody knows how dangerous they are. Everybody knows who Nikola Jokic is. Everybody knows who Porter is and Murray is. Now that Murray is 100% healthy, teams are going to have to get better this offseason. Now, I don't know how they're going to do it in the Western Conference. How many players are going to be available in free agency? How many guys that are going to be available in trade talks? But there are teams in the Western Conference, they have to get better. And there are teams right now like Phoenix that could be cutting down salaries as we see Chris Paul being put in waivers. Does Booker want to play there anymore? He didn't want to play there 2 years ago. Then Chris Paul got his extension, and he got his extension. He was happy about that. There's going to be a lot of interesting things that could happen this offseason. A lot. The Spurs got the number 1 pick. They have salary room. Do the Spurs make a couple of splash moves in the offseason after they bring in the number 1 or the best prospect in NBA history? There's a lot, Speedy. There's a lot to get into throughout the offseason on where the Nuggets are going to, where other teams are going to, and what they're going to do this offseason to catch up to the Denver Nuggets.
And that's the formula that's going to be tough to duplicate because the Nuggets, what you described before, was actually very unique player prototypes. Michael Porter, like you were saying, is a player that's like a 2 skill-wise, but size-wise is like a 4. So it makes it tough to defend. Nikola Jokic is just probably the most unique skill-wise big man we've ever seen, with the way he can pass, the way he could even pass without even having to dribble much. Like he can make all these behind the back passes, sideways passes, like a point guard a lot of the time too. We've never seen anything like that. Jamal Murray is a bigger point guard prototype too, that has the skills of a shooter and a more traditional type point guard. And it makes it hard for teams to be able to defend that on a consistent basis. Even Miami, who had a really good defensive team all playoffs long, all series long, had no answers to try to figure it out. Now, game 5 was sloppy. Miami's defense did play a lot better. The Nuggets couldn't hit anything from 3. But beyond that, the Heat were guessing. And Eric Spoelstra, who we said a couple weeks ago was the best coach in the NBA, he got outcoached badly by Malone and kept him guessing for quite a while. And a lot of these player prototypes are young too, and they could play in so many different ways. And it's just very hard to defend. And the other thing that the Nuggets do so well is they do off the ball movement. You talked about what Golden State did well. Now Golden State relied on the 3 more, but the Nuggets, the way they move off the ball, it's a very big key of having success in today's NBA, where you don't have to play isolation basketball, because isolation basketball doesn't work anymore.
There are 2 players that everybody keeps talking about going into the offseason that could be suitors for other teams in trade talks. Bradley Beal being one of them, that the Heat already came out the other day and said that if Bradley Beal becomes available, they're absolutely going to be a prominent suitor to make a move for him. Another team that will be interested in Bradley Beal this offseason is the Celtics. And the Celtics have been a team that has always liked Bradley Beal. As a matter of fact, him and Tatum are very close. And I'm telling you right now, Tatum and Jaylen Brown just haven't worked. It hasn't worked. And I think going in the offseason, the Celtics have to decide on where they're going as a team and an organization with a young coach, a coach that was pretty much handed the keys because their other coach can't keep his hands off of women, who's now coaching the Rockets.
Maybe they should trade for Zion Williamson. He can't keep his hands off either.
Karl Anthony Towns is another player that could be very much available this offseason for a ton of teams, including the Knicks, who have been a team connected with Karl Anthony Towns because of Leon Rose. Now, I'm not saying Karl Anthony Towns is the player that's going to change everything in the Eastern Conference, because he's not. He hasn't done anything in the West with the Timberwolves with that talent when they had Edwards and Levine and they had Butler. This team was good.
Wiggins.
This was a good team. They've had a tremendous amount of talent there, and they couldn't get over the hump. And maybe Karl Anthony Towns is the reason why they can't. They made a trade in the offseason last year, added another big man, because the weakness throughout the playoffs, especially against the Grizzlies last year, was their defense. They get the best defensive player in the league, the best big man defender in the league, and he can't get along with the players on his team. There's a lot that has to happen this offseason in the West if they're going to knock off the Denver Nuggets. And they're going to be even better next year and the year after the trade during the finals, where they get OKC's first-round draft pick in 2024, which is next year, not this year, next year, which will probably be another lottery pick.
And they get a second one this year too, so they can trade back into the first round if they wanted. So
it's ridiculous. The rich gets richer, and the poor always sucks.
And that's the process that teams are going to have to build on, too, because a lot of these big three experiments, too, that these teams have tried, they just haven't worked. I mean, even a team like the Suns this year, which, again, I was very high on it. They were my pick at the start of the year to win it all. And then once one guy got hurt or one guy started to struggle, it really just deteriorated everything. Even the Nuggets, this NBA Finals, when one guy struggled offensively, besides game 2, they always had somebody else to pick him up, and you need that kind of depth. And I think it's going to change a lot on how teams build because of that, because the Nuggets are mostly a homegrown team. Now, some of the veterans off the bench were trades, like Bruce Brown was a former Brooklyn Net, KCP, etc. But most of that team was homegrown guys, and teams are going to start to try to build like that. I know that the players run the league, so it's going to be hard, but besides
LeBron runs the league.
Besides LeBron, who has won with that big three formula? Really nobody. I mean, the Warriors technically did too, but again, the Warriors did it homegrown too.
Yeah. And I think that when you look at both these series, obviously in the NBA and the NHL, these are two powerhouse teams. The Nuggets throughout the season was the best team in the West. And then you look at the Vegas Knights, they were the best team in the West practically all season as well. And you looking at that series against the Florida Panthers, they played a Cinderella team. They had a rookie goaltender, a fifth-string goaltender in Hill that, honestly, nobody in their wildest dreams would have believed that he was going to show up in the playoffs. He was actually going to play in the playoffs and win the job over Jonathan Quick, who's a 2-time Stanley Cup champion with the LA Kings. Who would have thought that? I don't know. That's a Cinderella story.
He was traded last year for a 4th-round pick.
And then you look at the Florida Panthers and what the Florida Panthers did. They make a trade in the offseason, which yours truly, including Speedy, did not like it. It didn't make any sense whatsoever when they were the best team in the Eastern Conference last year. All season long, they were the best team. Even when they fired Joe Quenneville, they were the best team in the Eastern Conference. They bring in a new coach, no problem. And then they lose in the first round. They go into the playoffs as a bottom feeder, an 8th seed wonder of the world.
Who only got in because the Penguins lost to the Blackhawks and the Blue Jackets.
Yes, that's a whole nother story. They sneak into the playoffs, and the trade that they made with Calgary stood out as Matthew Tkachuk got healthy at the end of the season. Even though he still scored 40 goals, he still had over close to 100 points. I think he had I think it was almost 100 points. Had another good season. Got paid a lot of money in the offseason, over $11 million. And showed up in the playoffs and did what they expected him to do, is be the power forward, be the unique instigator on the ice, as he did, and he was on the ice throughout the Boston series, then throughout the Toronto series, then all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals, including against Carolina. Game winner after game winner after game winner. Was I surprised that the Vegas Knights won? No. When they made the trade for Jack Eichel, what was it, 2 years ago? And Buffalo practically gave him away. They gave him away for nothing. That's why I was questioning the Rangers when there were stories that the Rangers were interested in bringing him in. I said, I do not want to give up any of the talent that they're asking for. And then you look at what Vegas gave up for him, and I know they gave up some pieces, but not the type of player Jack Eichel is.
I think Buffalo was giving harder offers to the teams in the East, so they had to settle for one in the West eventually after that, and ended up going to Vegas. And yes, Tuck is a good player, but definitely it was not missed in this playoff run when you have all those wing depth centered around Jack Eichel.
Jack Eichel played extremely well in the playoffs. Was a big reason why the Vegas Knights beat the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Finals. And it wasn't about scoring, and he did score a couple of goals in this series, but it really wasn't that. This is whole game. As an offensive, defensive player, as a guy that was in the middle, winning draws and face-offs, and doing the dirty work, which you expect your best players to do in important times. Jack Eichel proved on why he was the second pick right behind Connor McDavid about 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, some of his passes too, even on the ones that weren't goals too, were really, really good in the slot areas too. Behind the net, he was excellent too, and even playing physically too, which wasn't normally his game in the past. But on this Vegas team, you have to be physical, and they really showed that kind of thing all playoffs long. And I saw something on Twitter too, like Jack Eichel had the best game 2, I think, performance without actually scoring a goal of the entire Vegas Golden Knights team. Like, that's how well he still played at certain points too. And then we have so much other wing depth too to go along with Marchessault, the former Panther.
And if you look at Jack Eichel's numbers in 67 games, he had 27 goals and 39 assists for 66 points. That's a good player, not a sensational player. And he's coming back from a neck injury, a back injury that a lot of people thought he wasn't going to come back at the top of his game. And it might take him 2 or 3 years coming back. He's 26 years old. Is he Connor McDavid? Anybody that thinks nobody's Connor McDavid. Not even Draisaitl is Connor McDavid. And Draisaitl is a good number 2. Actually, he's a great number 2.
Yeah.
And they'll never win with those guys because they don't have a goalie. But I will say this, the Golden Knights deserved winning the Stanley Cup. And I will tell you this, the Florida Panthers, this won't be the last time you see the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm telling you that right now. They're going to be a good team for a very long time. Their farm system's one of the top 5 in hockey right now. They always draft very, very well. They have a great farm system with defensive players. That's probably why they decided to part away with one of their best defenders in the offseason to Calgary. Because they know they have a tremendous amount of talent in their farm system.
And again, that depth was very good throughout the playoffs too, especially against Toronto too, which had a lot of offensive depth. Against the Hurricanes were kind of banged up, so that it wasn't really a great indicator there. But the Bruins have a lot of depth, especially getting Taylor Hall back at the end of the year. And Florida's defensive depth without Weegar having to just trade him, because it's not like they got anything back from defensive defensemen from Calgary in that trade either. So that's what was even more surprising. You had Brandon Montour playing at a high level again. You had Mark Stahl kind of rebirthed in an all way, looking like he did with the Rangers again in certain points during the postseason. But eventually with Vegas, it finally got exposed a little bit, where Vegas's second and third lines are really just dominating that second and third pair defensemen. And even Ekblad in that game 5 was not very good at all either. So just not ideal. And Vegas is just too much depth, too much wingers and centers that could play everywhere too, and just made it very hard.
The Golden Knights won the Stanley Cup 4-1 versus the Panthers, their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. Vegas became the second fastest to win a Stanley Cup. Only the Oilers won a Stanley Cup faster since becoming an expansion team. Vegas is the first team to score 9 goals in the Stanley Cup, in a Stanley Cup game in history. The Golden Knights have made 4 conference finals appearances in their 6 seasons in the NHL. Vegas had 11 different players scoring over 10 points in the playoffs, and 4 different players scoring over 20 points. Jonathan Marchessault, right? Am I right? Marchessault, okay, won the Conn Smythe Trophy, finishing with 13 goals and 11 assists in the playoffs. Marchessault is a former Florida Panther selected by Vegas in the expansion draft. So what are the coincidences of that?
Storybook ending.
A Florida Panther, an ex-Florida Panther, which they picked up in the expansion draft, was the MVP of the Stanley Cup Finals.
They literally said you could have him if you take on this cap casualty of Riley Smith, who, by the way, is still there. One of the 6 originals left on that Vegas team, and ends up winning MVP, Conn Smythe Trophy.
It's a crazy story, and again, everybody played well, including Hill, and I'm very surprised he didn't win the Conn Smythe.
Yeah, he definitely could have.
He should have. He was the backbone of this team. He stood on his head throughout every single series. Really, the reason why the Vegas got out of the Western Conference series against Dallas was because of him in the final 2 games. He was the one. Yeah, they scored goals, but he was standing on his head. Some of the saves that he made. How about in the game 1 and game 2 against the Florida Panthers? The saves that he was making in those games.
Yeah, a lot of people were calling it the best save in Stanley Cup history. The Game 2 one, I believe.
I mean, honestly, I understand they give it to the guy that's obviously scoring points and scoring goals, and he's been the face of the Vegas Knights throughout the playoffs. They want to give it to that guy, but the guy really is the guy that shouldn't have been on this team. The guy that shouldn't have started. He was a fifth-string goaltender.
And they could have had him. It wasn't the obvious one either, because they could have given it to many other guys too. Like you said, there were 4 guys that got over 20 points. Chandler Stevenson, I think, had the most playoff Stanley Cup goals in that. Then you have Eichel mixed in there. You had Mark Stone who had a hat trick at Game 5 too. He's up to over 20 points too. There's a lot of different guys they could have given it to. So that's how
Eichel had over 20 points. Yeah. Stone had over 20 points. Half of their team had over 20 points. It's unbelievable. I don't think you're going to see an offensive style of hockey the way we did with the Vegas Knights throughout the playoffs this year in the next 5 to 6 years. I mean, that was a lot. That what they were doing against teams, how many goals and points they were doing it by the clip in a lot of these series. Look what they did against Dallas.
Yeah, they scored 6 goals in Game 6.
I mean, look how many goals they scored against Dallas. They scored 9 goals against the Florida Panthers in one game.
And scored 7 in Game 2.
I mean, it's ridiculous. It really is. So, the playoffs are fun. Hockey playoffs are the best. There's no argument to that. And anybody that's going to argue that doesn't know hockey. Okay, it was a sensational. As much as you look at the series 4-1, it was still a fun series to watch.
Yeah,
it really was. Did I think Florida was going to get busted in the lip the way they did in that series? No, but Vegas was bound to win one. They were an expansion team, 7 years ago?
6 years ago. They went to the Cup their first
year. Yeah. So 2 out of the 6 years, they were in the Stanley Cup Finals.
After an embarrassing 2021 where they lost against the Montreal Canadiens in the conference finals and then missed the playoffs the next year, they have officially rebounded and had their own redemption tour.
1 out of every 3 years, as you look at the numbers, they make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. And they're going to be good next year too. They get a new coach. They're a coach that a lot of people question because he comes from Boston. I mean, I didn't question him. I don't think anybody questioned him. But a lot of people were making jokes because Boston went on a run that broke records in the regular season. Everybody said, oh, this team's the greatest team in NHL history. And then they got knocked out by an 8-seed Florida Panther team.
Not only got knocked out, they blew a 3-1 lead against an 8-seed. And they were up by a goal with under a minute to go. And they still blew that too. So if that doesn't happen, who knows what would have happened with the Florida Panthers if that run ever ends up happening? Who knows? But still, that is as sad of a collapse as you can get.
Bruce Cassidy, to me, was the coach of the year. I don't know if he wins it. I don't know when the awards are. But he was the coach of the year. It has nothing to do with wins and losses. I know that's how they pick the coach of the year most of the time. A coach came in, took over a team that decided to fire their coach last year. A team that just have not gotten over the hump since they fired Gerard Gallant. They hire this guy. He was the best guy available. He won a Stanley Cup with the Boston Bruins. And now he wins another Stanley Cup with another team. How many coaches in NHL history win championships with 2 different teams? I bet you it's not more than 5.
Probably not.
Bruce Cassidy proved to everybody why he is one of the best coaches in the NHL. He proved why the Vegas Knights have one of the most talented overall teams in the NHL and one of the best executives in the NHL who's been running this organization really since it started.
Ben says 2 Florida teams lost their championship games. Ben, do not hate on the underdog runs for South Florida this year. We've seen already 2 Final Four teams, and we've seen the Miami Heat and the Florida Panthers.
Now, again, watching hockey and watching the playoffs in hockey is the best thing. It's not even close. The NBA playoffs was horrible. It really was. Because you know who's going to win. I mean, the only surprise this year was Miami going all the way to the NBA championship. And it might have not been a surprise if they didn't get into the playoffs as an 8th seed.
Mm-hmm. Only Chicago held their lead. We'd be looking at it a lot differently.
I mean, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals last year against the Boston Celtics, and the Boston Celtics beat them. This year, they go to the Eastern Conference and they beat the hell out of the Boston Celtics.
And they beat them in the bubble too. In the Heat and Celtics have been 3 of the last 4 Eastern Conference Finals.
Both teams are going to be one of the favorites coming out of the East again in the offseason. You just don't know. Did Vegas know that Hill was going to show up and become dominant after 3 goaltenders get hurt during the season? And then they make a trade for Jonathan Quick because the Blue Jackets wanted to shed salary?
Right.
No. Nobody could have wrote that story. And that's what happens with hockey. A hot goaltender goes into the playoffs. Did I not say that in the beginning of the playoffs? Whatever team has the hottest goaltender and he could be a no-name, they're going to win. Murray did it with the Pittsburgh Penguins for 2 years, back-to-back years practically.
Look at this year, too, especially the last 8 teams that were remaining. Besides Dallas with Jake Ottinger and probably Florida with Sergei Bobrovsky, like everyone was playing platoons pretty much and backups that weren't starters at the beginning of the year, vice versa. And they were switching the goalies around a lot, which is unheard of for even that deep in the playoffs.
Jonathan Quick is another guy that came out of nowhere.
Right.
With the LA Kings. Came out of nowhere. Connecticut born.
Yep.
Nobody knew who Jonathan Quick was. He wins the Stanley Cup, and then they lose again in the playoffs, and then they win another one. He wins 2 in 3 years. And then he disappears again.
And then he was traded this year. He was almost traded, I think, to Tampa at one point, and then they vetoed that because Vasilevsky was coming up, and then he just sat with that big contract and said, "All right, we'll still get you into the playoffs." But eventually, that team got old, and they rebuilt nicely, and they're pretty good. But Vegas has 3 of those players from that Stanley Cup team.
Jordan Binnington. I'm sorry, I'm going to fix up his name there. Does anybody? I was there when he beat the Boston Bruins at the Boston Garden. I was there. I saw Jordan do that. I'm not a big fan of his, by the way. He was horrible. Not a nice guy.
Yes, the one.
He wasn't.
I remember editing those videos. Well, he was the only one that had a vulgar word in there.
Yeah, he's not a nice guy. He was not nice. I will be honest with you. He would talk to all the women. All the beautiful women, all the broadcaster analysts that were on the ice when Jordan wanted to speak to anybody, it was the women. If I walked up to Jordan, which I did, he said some vulgar things to me. Okay, but whatever. I didn't give a crap what he said. I really don't. But that's just hockey players, I guess. I mean, that's players that just don't want to talk to the press. I don't give a crap. I couldn't stand him, and I can't stand him now. But nevertheless, I remember the run that he made with the St. Louis Blues. One of the greatest goaltending runs we've seen in the last 25 years.
Yep, another guy that wasn't a starter either. Another guy that wasn't even the backup for most of this time before that, too, because
he got called up in the middle of the season from the AHL because they lost their backup goalie.
And I always said for a while that was a Blues team that had a compilation of skaters that was very good that really lacked goaltending because Brian Elliott was not that good. I always liked Jake Allen as a prospect that he didn't play him enough. Then he finally got the chance to play that year and he got hurt. And then Binnington took over and the rest is history.
And that was the same year that Craig Berube took over the team in the second half of the season and won the Stanley Cup.
Yep.
He took over. They were like 11 or 12 points out of a playoff spot. They were completely out of the playoffs going into the second. They were the hottest team in hockey. Obviously, Craig Berube wanted Jordan Binnington up. He was coaching the AHL team. He brings him up, and there we go. Everybody started playing for him. They made the playoffs, and they went on one of those runs. Goaltending wins championships. Defense wins championships.
The Blues and Vegas this year. The Blues at that time and Vegas now, 2 of the deepest defenses ever. Chicago, too, when they won their Stanley Cups. Deep defense.
The Rangers officially hire Peter Laviolette to be their next head coach on Tuesday. James Dolan said Peters is impressive and has an impressive resume, which includes winning a Stanley Cup and advancing to the finals with three different teams. He has made him one of the most respected coaches in the league. Besides goaltender coach Benoit Allaire, the Rangers have to fill all the other assistant coaching positions. Laviolette has coached for 21 years in the NHL with the Islanders, Hurricanes, Flyers, and Predators, and the Capitals. Laviolette has 752 wins in his coaching career, 8th most in the NHL and NHL history. Laviolette is 32 and 29 career in his playoffs and 3 Stanley Cup appearances, winning with the Hurricanes in 2006 and losing with the 7 seed Flyers and the 8 seed Predators in his other 2 appearances. So Peter Laviolette is the best coach available. He was the best coach available for the Rangers. I know a lot of Ranger fans all over social media would say Mark Messier, Mark Messier, Mark Messier. I thought Mark Messier would have been the better fit before they hired Gerard Gallant. When you see a player's coach like Peter Laviolette, who is one of the winningest coaches in NHL history, I think one of the most respected coaches in the NHL right now. He's coached a lot of good teams. He's made teams Stanley Cup contenders. And he has a rough streak behind the way he is as a player's coach. He is not going to coach and make the finesse players go out there and try to put the puck in the net. If you're not grinding, if you're not forechecking, you're not going to play. He plays hard-nosed hockey. Go look at the Flyer teams, the Hurricane teams, the Predator teams. That's all hard-nosed hockey. Aggressive hockey. You have to play defense. Goaltending is a premium. And I do not see Panarin fitting to this offense. I don't. I don't see Lafreniere. I do not see Alexis Lafreniere as one of those guys that are going to be a part of this team moving forward. I think that the Rangers need to decide on, if you're bringing in Peter Laviolette, they need to decide who fits the culture with the Rangers moving forward and who doesn't. And the good players, and a lot of the good players, they just don't.
Yeah, a lot of the forwards are going to have to figure out how to be more physical too, because that was a big problem the Rangers had. Because I don't think their defensive depth of defensemen was the main issue for them in the playoffs. Yes, Fox struggled towards the end. Yes, Lindgren was playing hurt a lot of the time. Fine, but their offense in the middle, their defense in the middle of the ice, especially in those middle series against the Devils too. The forwards were just not forechecking. And besides Kreider, and I would say Trocheck is pretty good at defensively too, and Zibanejad has been good at times defensively this season. They don't have a lot of those guys that could be physical type guys. And Peter Laviolette is going to have to instill that, because you're right. They're going to have to trade some probably. I don't know if they could trade everybody, but you could imagine they could definitely make a move, because they do need center depth too. And all Peter Laviolette's teams have always had good center depth as well. Even Nashville, that wasn't an offensive powerhouse.
Matt Martin's going to be available this offseason. He is a premium player who doesn't cost enough. He doesn't cost a lot. I mean, he's a premium player that you can use in the Peter Laviolette offense. He's a grinder. He's a guy that's going to stand up for his players. He's not going to score a lot of goals. He'll score 12, 13 goals, but you need grinders. You need guys that can go up and down the ice, defend the players, forecheck. The Rangers for years have been trying to find that fourth line that can run that type of offense, that type of defense throughout the games when they need that fourth line to play. They don't have that. Even with the money that they've spent in the offseason, bringing in all these fourth-line players, they get rid of Mott, then they bring him back at the trade deadline because they should have never gotten rid of him, because he's a grinder. That's why you re-sign Mott. Mott is a good fit with the Peter Laviolette type of game. Panarin does not fit. Now, everybody's going to say Panarin would fit in anything. Panarin he's annoying. He's a flea. There's no question that he is. He's one of the most hated players in the NHL. He really is. But he doesn't have a big frame like a Wilson on the Capitals, which he coached over there. He doesn't have that. Wilson's a great player. Defenseman, he can score goals. He can pass. He can do everything. He's a grinder. He's a forechecker. He's everything. He's a defenseman. Panarin is a great goal scorer. He's not a forechecker. He's not a grinder. He gives up on plays. He will not fit in the Peter Laviolette type of game. He's not. He's not that type of player. Anybody that's watched Peter Laviolette coach for years knows that he can't stand those finesse players. And everybody's going to say, well, he had a finesse player here and he had a finesse player there. Yeah. Every team has a finesse player, but if you don't play two-way hockey with Peter Laviolette, you're not going to win.
Yeah, the majority of them still have to be powerful enough to be able to be physical in a playoff identity, because especially in the middle, games 3, 4, and 5 against the Devils are just having their way in the middle of the ice. And I think the Rangers just have to really shore up conceptually that area where 5-on-5, their offense was not great in the playoffs the last 2 years. They really had to rely a lot on the power play. And because of that, they haven't been able to get good entry passes. I saw something too, where a lot of Peter Laviolette teams are very good with their passes from the point with defensemen too. Yep. And that's something that Trouba had a little bit of an issue with last year, and Fox obviously is very good at it, but a lot of their other defensemen still have to learn that kind of thing, McCullough and a lot of those younger ones, but something like Laviolette could definitely help that. And then even their wingers, entry passes into the zone where they're not offside. The Rangers were offside a lot in certain Devils games, and some of them were wrongfully called, I think, but still, even so, they need to work on that. And somebody like Laviolette is a good coach to help with that too, because Nashville wasn't a fast-paced team.
Never was.
But they could do it on occasion to surprise people, and that's why they were able to make a run as an 8 seed too. And same kind of thing with Philly when they went to the Cup as a 7 seed too. They were always a big, tough team, but they could surprise you with some skill here and there too with those entry passes.
I think when you look at the big picture and you look at what Peter Laviolette stands for and the way he is going to push and grind with these players moving forward with the New York Rangers, they have to put the right pieces around him to win. Lou Lamoriello, he runs an offense, he runs a defense a certain way, and he needs that backbone goaltender to do that throughout his career as an executive with those Devil teams. Martin Brodeur stood for everything that he stood for when he brought in guys like Jason Arnott and Claude Lemieux and all these other guys that he brought in when he took over for the New Jersey Devils. And now you see what he's trying to do with the Islanders. But the Islanders are old. They're an old team. They're the oldest team. The NHL, it's about youth, speed. That's where the game is transitioned to. And the Rangers have all those. They do. They just don't have grinders. They don't have those guys. They have Trouba that, lays the hits on and then sometimes does stupid things as a captain that gets his team into trouble and gets himself into trouble on the ice. They have players that can run that type of style, but they have players that are on this team, has been on this team, getting paid a lot of money that don't fit the Rangers culture, has not fit the Rangers culture. And that's why the Rangers can't get over the hump.
And they're pretty good when it comes to player development, especially with their defense that we've seen, either with the trades coming in and also somebody like Braden Schneider and even Nico McCullough coming over at the trade deadline too. Now, the forwards are another story because the kids have had trouble developing on a consistent basis too. Like we were saying, Lafreniere dropped off this year. Capo Caco, I think, did improve in some skill areas, but points-wise still has to get a little better.
Lafreniere drops off every single year. I mean, the guy just doesn't do anything. This guy was the #1 pick in the draft. Some people were comparing his skills to Sidney Crosby. Mm-hmm. How many people said that? That's why I told the Ranger fans they should trade that pick. Trade the pick. Get defensive players. Fill in that defensive role. That's what they needed to do.
Either that or center depth, because the Rangers can't win a faceoff to save their life.
But this was, but even a couple of years ago, I just thought they needed to trade that pick and add defensive help. And they decided to draft a guy like Alexis Lafreniere, who's a good player, who was a good player, scored 55 goals in the minors and 60-some-odd assists where he had over 100 points. Everybody was like, oh, this guy's got speed. He's got size. He's got this. He's got that. He's done nothing. Even being put on the same line as Capo Caco, another great foreign player, Finnish player. Everybody compared his skills. You haven't seen hands like this since Timo Solani. That's who they compared his hands to when I was at the draft. How many goals in the 4 years that he's been in the NHL, or 5 years, I think it's 4 years, he's been in the NHL. What is the most amount of goals he scored in a season? What is it, 14?
Yeah, I think it was this year, probably 16 or something like that. Yeah,
16 goals. That's what a second pick in the first round is going to give you at the age of 21, 22 years old. I mean, seriously, when we're talking about Teemu Selanne, who had 70 goals in his rookie season.
He had 18 goals this year. That's his career high.
Teemu Selanne. Just remember that. A kindergarten teacher before he became an NHL player, just so everybody knows.
Oh, no, I actually didn't know that.
Really?
No, I didn't.
He was a kindergarten teacher. Yes, he was. And then he was drafted. And then his first season, he had 70 goals.
With Winnipeg, yeah.
Yeah, I remember it. Yep. And everybody was comparing this guy, Capo Caco, to his I guess you could say hero growing up. Over there in Finland, how many players could say they were Teemu Selanne? Teemu Selanne had, I think, close to 700 goals in his career.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the best and one of the greatest goal scorers in NHL history.
One of the fastest players in NHL history, too.
So it's crazy. The development of players with the New York Rangers has not worked out. It hasn't. And maybe Peter Laviolette thinks he can fix Alexis Lafreniere. Maybe he feels he can fix Capo Caco. Gerard Gallant tried to do it too. It didn't work with him.
Yeah, the Rangers are also in a weird stuck spot because they got better than expected right away with the free agents too when it comes to a regular season success. Now, obviously in the playoffs, it's been kind of hit or miss so far. They made the Eastern Conference Finals, and then this year they obviously collapsed badly the way they did against the Devils and looked effortless in Game 7. But even so, you wonder if those kind of things, like on another team, he would be playing top 6 more often too. And we've seen this with his last 2 teams too. The Predators and the Capitals both have had young players kind of hindered because of that. Now, none of them are the talent that Caco and Lafreniere were. Now, I'm not saying they couldn't be. Kevin Fiala's looking good in LA. The Capitals have Capitals actually had Chandler Stevenson at the time too. Then they traded him to Vegas, who obviously did great with Vegas during the Cup. But you wonder if that kind of thing could change if one of them does stay. Because obviously they're not going to trade both of them most likely, but one of them definitely could be traded. And if they do, if they do keep some of them, they're gonna have to figure it out. Maybe they play the top line, maybe they play the second line. We'll see.
Before we get our guest, we're still waiting for him, and I know Trevor Pryce will be in just a few moments. He's usually on time, so we're looking forward to getting Trevor. We haven't spoken to Trevor in about almost a year and a half.
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting Trevor, see what he's been doing since the last time we've had him on. He's a great interview. He has a lot of great stories, and I believe a Hall of Famer. I mean, you look at his numbers in his, 14-year career, 13-year career. I mean, those numbers are as good as any pass rusher in right now that over the last 3 or 4 years that have gone into the Hall of Fame. Really. I mean, he's got way over 100 sacks. I mean, this guy he did everything. He stopped the run. He can get at the quarterback. He did everything that he needed to do to help his teams win. And he was part, I think, of the Broncos championship.
Yep.
So he won a Super Bowl. And he was a big part of that defense as well with the Broncos.
Oh, yeah. He was interior defensive lineman. They don't get a lot of respect for the Hall of Fame like they should. And it's disappointing to see the way these committees are, that they don't prioritize a lot of these positions that aren't flashy in a way, but they're so impactful, especially in a 3-4 defense. And you look at even when he was with the Ravens too, he was a 4-3 defensive tackle in Denver, and then 3-4 with the Ravens in a hybrid type defense that had a very important role. He was really good even before Haloti Ngata got there too. And he was really the anchor in that middle.
As everybody knows, at the end of the season, the Jets pulled off a trade with the Baltimore Ravens, and they added Chuck Clark, who is a very underrated defensive free safety. A guy that could stop the run. He's one of the better safeties in the NFL on stopping the run. He can do a lot of different things that the Jets could not do last year with their dual threat at the safety position. They kept Whitehead. They decided to part some ways in the offseason with some of the other safeties that they had on this roster. And everybody thought it was going to be Whitehead and Chuck Clark. And then early this week, nobody knew how bad the injury was on the practice field with Chuck Clark. He gets stretched off, or he pretty much carried off the field. And nobody knew it was as bad as an ACL tear. He gets brought in the back. And then probably within 24 hours, the Jets, and a source came out that the Jets were talking to Adrian Amos, a very good safety, still fairly in the prime of his career at 30 years old, who is still available in free agency. The Jets made an offer for $4 million for 1 year, for a 1-year contract, and land Adrian Amos like that. And everybody thought, oh my God, now we got 3 guys at the safety position. The Jets are loaded at the safety position. And then it came out, as soon as that move came out, when they signed the 1-year deal where everybody was jumping for joy, the story came out that Chuck Clark will be out indefinitely with a possible ACL tear.
Wow.
And that's why the Jets brought in Adrian Amos. And there were other teams interested in Adrian. Adrian wants to go on a winning team. He only signed a 1-year deal. He's 30 years old. I believe, still has a couple years left in him. He is one of the more underrated safeties in the NFL. He really is. On those Green Bay Packer teams, he played a big part in that secondary. Him and Alexander.
He played a big part in Chicago, too, in 2018 on that defense that was number 1 in the league.
Yep. Is he better than Chuck Clark? I would think so.
I do think so.
But could you imagine with Chuck Clark, him, and Whitehead? You would have had a dual threat. I'm not a dual threat, a triple threat. So it's surprising, but listen, you sit here and you try to put things together on how things work, and injuries happen. On a football field, on a baseball field, on the ice, on a basketball court, it happens. Things and freakish things happen. Maybe because it's turf and it's not grass, as the NFL is trying, or NFL players are trying to pass some kind of, what do you call it, a treaty or something like that?
Yeah, petition.
A petition where every single NFL field should have grass, not turf, because it will solve the knee problems, the ankle problems, and all the different problems some of these players have had over the last couple of years. And we've spoken to ex-NFL players that were complaining about that.
I think everyone I've asked so far has been very pro-grass in comparison to the turf, especially the artificial turf that they're using now.
I think, obviously, the way the Jets were looking at this injury is to not bring in a player that will replace a guy like Chuck Clark could put him in a position starting the season where there's going to be a lot of what ifs at that position. And knowing that Amos was available and that Aaron Rodgers has a connection with him, I'm sure Aaron reached out to Amos. I'm sure of it. And I'm sure he's spoken to Amos, say that we have a very good chance of winning a Super Bowl here. And that's why this move happened. Amos wasn't going to the Jets unless he knew there was a good chance they could win a championship. He's 30 years old. He's making a decent salary. I mean, the Jets are giving him $4 million. That's guaranteed this year. And he has a chance to go far into the playoffs. And with a team that with this kind of talent, yeah, it's quite possible that the Jets could go to the Super Bowl this year. I'm not saying that they will. But with the talent that they have, and everybody keeps saying, and I've been reading so many different things, that this Quinnen Williams thing is very close. It's very close. So I expect, obviously, the Jets have a week off. The Jets to negotiate this. And by the end of this coming week where they have off, that we're going to hear something with the Jets coming to an agreement with Quinnen Williams. I think that's the missing piece right now to this defense. When they get Quinnen Williams, they're scary.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to be very scary. Everybody keeps talking about this offense with Aaron Rodgers. I think the strength of this team is going to be in the heart of their defense. And you bring in Amos in here, if he could stay healthy, that secondary could be the best secondary in football. DJ Reed, Michael Carter, Sauce Gardner, Amos, Whitehead. What secondary is better than that right now in the NFL? That's a fact. I'm not just saying this because I'm a Jet guy. I'm just telling you, when you look at the names, and most of these guys are in their prime. All of them are in their prime. There is no excuses for the Jets this year. None. I don't want to hear it from the Jet fans on social media. There is no excuse for this team. Oh, the safety is our weakest spot. Give me a break. Now you add Amos to this secondary. I like Chuck Clark. I thought he was going to fit very, very well as a leader. Amos, Speedy, you think he's better. Now you put a guy in that's a veteran player that's won in certain places and understands how to be a team leader to that secondary. He is the veteran to that secondary. DJ Reed is 28. Sauce Gardner is 22. Whitehead is what, 26, 27? Amos is 30 years old. So I think that the position that the Jets put themselves in, and then really where this Jets team is going, this is a good thing. And I'm not saying the Chuck Clark thing is a bad thing. I mean, not a bad thing, but I do believe that everything happens for a reason. And maybe the Chuck Clark injury opens up a completely different path for the New York Jets in that secondary.
Yeah, and you look at a team that had trouble last year guarding tight ends too. Adrian Amos is definitely something that could help in that area. Now, I don't think he's like a great coverage safety, but he's a lot better than what they have currently on this team, because Whitehead was more of a run stopper, and even bringing in Clark, he's a little bit of slight upgrade over Whitehead when it comes to coverage, but still, that's not his main strength either. Those are more run stopping type safeties to help out that run defense, which the Jets had issues with in the second half of the season after they were a top 10 run defense most of the year. So they need to figure that out, and I think Amos is a good step in the right direction to be able to guard that. I still think they need that more on the linebacker front too. CJ Mosley is a good type zone coverage type guy, but they don't really have a rangy man coverage type guy to help out against those faster tight ends too, which definitely bit them at the end of the season. We saw in the Detroit game, especially Jacksonville, Evan Ingram was lighting them up forever, and they just lost a lot of those games because of that reason. They stopped everyone else for the most part, and they just couldn't stop those tight ends.
NFL Network Ian Rappaport reports that Saquon Barkley could reconsider. There's the word. Reconsider the offer for the Giants in the $12 million per year. Saquon said that the reports that he turned down that offer is misleading. Saquon also said, I think they're open to talking. I think I'm open to talking. But I think at the end of the day, when you really break it down and look at the whole situation for what it is, there is no rush. We still have time on the table. July 17th is not tomorrow, and it's not in a week. So he's pretty much saying he's willing to sit down and have a conversation about this again. Saquon is willing to sit down with the New York Giants and speak to them about going back to that. I know he wants a 3-year extension, at least, with a possible 4-year player option. And he deserves it. Maybe he thinks that nobody else is going to give him that offer of $16 million. So maybe he could talk to the Giants on those 3 years, giving me the 12 million guarantee for 3 years with incentives that can make me maybe in the next 2 years, $16 million a year. Saquon had 1,312 yards, 10 touchdowns, rushing, and 57 catches for 338 yards last season. The Giants have mentioned they are not looking to extend or restructure Leonard Williams' contract, which I don't understand, by the way. The Giants currently have $3.82 million in cap space. Here's the thing. Why is Leonard Williams being pampered? I mean, seriously, they overextended his contract last year. I think it was last year. They gave him a lot of money because he had one good year in his final year as a New York Giant. He had, 13 sacks?
Yeah, 2020. And then Gettleman had his last gift before he got fired.
They give him an extension worth about almost $45 million or something like that. He's making what, like 14 million, 15 million a year?
Yeah. And I think his cap hit's like 32.
He's not worth that money. He's not. And the fact that they don't want to restructure it doesn't make any sense. And I think Joe Shane is a smart guy. He's not a stupid man. He really isn't. I mean, you sit here and we've heard so many stories from the Buffalo Bills organization that Joe Shane is one of the masterminds of rebuilding this Buffalo Bills to a championship contender. He was one of the masterminds of that organization. So there was a reason why the Giants brought him in. There was a reason why, with all the interviews that they've had last year before they brought in Dable, Joe Shane was on their radar from the beginning. I sit here today and Joe Shane saying that they don't want to restructure or they have no interest in restructuring anybody, including Leonard Williams' contract for Saquon Barkley, just shows the disrespect that he has for Saquon.
Yep, and it just shows that the Giants are not going to be able to solve anything else, even besides Saquon, too. Because, yeah, sealing Saquon is going to be a big part. But, again, the Giants are not just pay Saquon and your automatic contender away either. They still have a lot of holes on that wide receiving core, a couple in that offensive line, too. And they definitely could use that money elsewhere, too. And Leonard Williams, who's I thought played well last year, but he's not worth the money he's getting by any means. He's worth about probably a third, 2/3, or half of that. It makes sense for him to take it just for the team's sake too. He did it for Dexter Lawrence, good, but now you got to do it for more because the Giants need a lot more.
I know everybody makes jokes about Zeke, but Zeke is available. Carl's making jokes about Zeke and restructuring his contract on the market. Zeke is not going to make 14 million, 15, or whatever the hell he was making with the Cowboys this year.
No.
He'll be lucky if he makes 4 million a year. And I think there are quite a few teams that could use Ezekiel Elliott.
He has Eagles written all over him.
I'm just saying. I don't know, because the Eagles made a trade for
Rashad
Swift.
Penny, yeah.
For Swift,
yeah,
yes.
That's right.
So, and they also bought Penny in. So why would they bring Zeke? That's three guys, three notable guys.
Total NFC East pettiness.
I don't think they're going to do that. I think when you look at Ezekiel Elliott, there are teams like maybe the Lions bringing him in. I could see that happening. I could see the Rams doing it. They're a team. McVay is a kind of guy that likes those old running backs, those running backs that can run his offense. I think Zeke could do that. He's a power back. Maybe you bring him on a one-year deal. Oakland or Vegas, whatever you want to call them, they're a team that could do something like that to add a 1-2 punch with Jacobs. I could see that. Tennessee, if they decide to part ways with Derrick Henry, they could bring him in for 1 year. Maybe Houston with a rookie coach.
Yeah.
They could bring him in. They have Pierce over there. You had another running back, a veteran running back that can help you out in the locker room. Maybe in the locker room if he doesn't act like a lunatic. But we know how Ezekiel Elliott is. He thinks he's the best.
Oh, yeah.
As well as his fans do too, including the Beeve. Let's Beeve it.
And then the Beeve wanted him traded after 2 years.
Well, Beeve, he has his own interests in mind when his team is good, or his players are good, or amongst the league's best at one point. But yeah, I respect the Beeve, and whatever, everybody has their own opinion towards things, but are they the right opinion? No. My opinions aren't always right. Nobody's opinion's always right. You got to hope, or you look at things in a different way, in a different light. And that's the way I look at a lot of the things that this offseason could bring in the NFL, including Hard Knocks, which usually at this time we know who's going to be on Hard Knocks. But I'm going to give you guys a secret. If you guys watch Flight 23 with the Jets, in the last week and a half, there has not been a new episode, which tells me, in my perception, is something is going on with negotiations with HBO and the Jets. Really? I absolutely believe it. If you're not seeing any cameras on the field right now, where they do this every single year, they're calling this year's episodes Flight 23. And this past week, there hasn't been a new episode. Last past week was not if there's not an episode on Thursday, for the Jets and Flight 23. I'm telling you, the Jets are negotiating a deal with HBO and Hard Knocks. And the deal is you have to stop recording. Obviously, they're off this week, so there's not going to be any Flight 23, but they weren't off last week. Why wasn't there any videos on last week? So there's got to be something going on over there with HBO and the New York Jets. We're still waiting for Trevor Pryce. Have you heard from him?
He hasn't responded. I might try calling him. We'll see if that works.
Well, just text him.
I've been texting him.
All right. Well, we'll see if Trevor. Listen. I know Trevor's busy. He's probably he has a lot of sons and daughters. I think he's got 4 kids.
Yeah,
5 kids. So I know he's pretty busy. But hopefully we get Trevor on in a few minutes, in a few moments. But we're talking football, and we will get into baseball. I know everybody is. I see all over the feeds that everybody, where's baseball? There's more going on in baseball. We'll get into baseball. There's a lot to get into with the NBA, the NHL, even the NFL. There's a lot of stories coming, going out there in the NFL. The Stefon Diggs thing is a big story right now. It really is, and it is alarming. If you're a Buffalo Bills fan and your best offensive target isn't showing up to minicamp. Now, there was stories coming out through our Buffalo guys, and I speak to a bunch of Buffalo guys on our social media, and they were telling me that Stefon Diggs wants to be paid. After what Devontae Adams got last year, and Deebo Samuel's got, and all these different wide receivers got, even the Jaguars receiver, Christian Kirk, who had a good season, by the way. He everybody was questioning the $70-something million contract he got from the Jaguars. Stefon Diggs obviously knows he's better than Kirk. He knows he is. He's been one of the best wide receivers in the last 3 seasons. And him and Josh Allen are the best 1-2 punch, probably top 3 in the NFL. Stefon Diggs was absent day 1 of the Bills minicamp yesterday. Head coach Sean McDermott said he was concerned about the situation with Diggs and not showing up. Diggs' agent says he has been in the city of Buffalo and has taken his physical before the start of the minicamp. Reports have said the issues between Diggs and the Bills is not a contract-related problem. I disagree, and I don't believe that. Why wouldn't Stefon Diggs be on the field if it wasn't a contract disservice or thought on where his contract is going? The Bills restructured Diggs' contract where he only has a cap hit just under $15 million this season. Diggs' contract has over $20 million of cap hit each of the next 3 years. Diggs had 108 receptions for 1,429 yards and 11 touchdowns last season. Diggs has had 338 receptions for 4,189 yards and 29 touchdowns since joining the Bills in 2020. I sit here and I wonder, what is the Buffalo Bills' thoughts to what is going on with this team? Von Miller has showed up to mini camp after tearing his ACL in the middle of the season last year. Now, I don't know if he's starting the season on the field. He might be starting the season as a backup or first 6 games until his knee is healthy. He said he was running on the field yesterday. That's a good sign. But this story, when everybody was talking about maybe adding Odell Beckham or Hopkins, who is right now visiting the Patriots this week. Mm-hmm. And I'll get into the whole Patriots thing and Aaron Rodgers thing because there was a story that came out over the weekend that the Patriots were interested in making a move for Aaron Rodgers.
Of course.
And
fight the Jets.
It was an interesting story. This was before the Jets were coming out as the favorite of winning him and getting him. There was a story coming out that the Patriots actually reached out to the Green Bay Packers and reached out to Aaron Rodgers' agent to talk to the agent and see where Aaron's head is at on where and if he wants to come back as an NFL player. But I'm not getting into that yet because that's a funny story. I will say this. If you're a Buffalo Bills fan going into the season, you can't be happy that Miami got that much better. They got that much better. You look at their defense, they added now a linebacker to their defense, which has been a problem when it comes to injury all season last year. Last year, they made a move at the trade deadline. They added a pass rusher. Now they have consistency on both sides of the edge. They have Jalen Ramsey now and Howard. We were arguing 2 years ago who the two best corners in the NFL were. And I had Howard, you had Ramsey. And now they're playing on the same roster. Now, I don't think Ramsey right now going into the offseason this past year was the best corner in the league. He wasn't. I would say he was third or fourth. He's not what he was when he came from the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's not. He's good. He won a Super Bowl with the Rams, but he's not what he was in his first 4 or 5 years as a Jacksonville Jaguar. The guy was unbelievable. But he's still an elite corner. Now you have Howard and him on both sides of the field. Really, the weakness will be the slot for them, and that's where teams will attack them throughout the season, I'm sure. And at the running back positions, if you have a power back that can do so many different things, catch the ball and run the ball. Because last year, in the second half of the season, they had problems stopping the run. But I will say this. Adding Leonard to that defense, he's a good run stopping defender. So that's going to help their run defense. And again, Buffalo is not happy with the Jets either. Because the Jets added Aaron Rodgers. They're adding all these pieces. They added Al Woods. Their weakness in their line last year was the run stopping. Now they added one of the better run stoppers in the league. They added pieces this offseason. They made that defense as good as their defense was or better than it was last year. And now with Amos and losing Chuck Clark, that's a big loss. But adding Amos, the secondary is even better than it was last year.
Mm-hmm. Amos could cover zone. Not the fastest guy in the world, but can cover zone. And they needed that to help out against those tight ends too, and shallow coverage type things. Because the other thing the Jets were getting beat by a lot was screen passes too.
And then there's the Patriots. Now, let's say they add DeAndre Hopkins. Now, the weakness of the New England Patriots for the last couple of years since Edelman has left and Tom Brady has left and Gronkowski has left is they don't have consistency at that wide receiver position. I don't want to hear about Myers, Oscar Myers, or whatever the hell he got his big contract. I think it was last season.
It was this season.
The
Raiders. Go to the Raiders.
He goes to Josh McDaniels, another just absolute bust. But if they add DeAndre Hopkins to that offense, they got better. They did. And they have a good defense. I don't want to hear anything. The Patriots defense was one of the elite defenses, top defenses in the league last year. They're going to be top 10 again this year. They added some pieces. Their secondary is even better than it was, adding the 17th pick from
Gonzalez.
Yes, from Oregon, who we know is good. They're going to be good. We don't know what Macaroni Jones is going to do this year. But again, they have Bill O'Reilly there. This isn't the dual threat of coaches over there that were defensive and wide receiving coaches. No, they don't have a scientific, accuracy of running an offense. Okay. They don't have that this year. They have Bill O'Reilly, who is a good offensive coordinator. I don't know about a coach, but he's a good offensive coordinator. I think is going to help Jones out this year. And you add DeAndre Hopkins to that offense, and they drafted the tight ends over the last couple of years. They could have the weapons they need to compete. O'Reilly likes to run 2 tight ends deep. He loves to do that. He loves to run that offense. And I expect him to do that this year. I would not think anything differently of Bill O'Reilly for what we've seen when he was the offensive coordinator for that New England Patriot team, which, by the way, I think he won a Super Bowl with the Patriots. And then going over there to the Texans and doing what he did with the Texans, which didn't do much, but he did enough.
He did fine, though, when he was just the coach. When he became the coach of the GM, that was the other issue. Okay, same kind of thing we talk about with Chip Kelly, too. Like, Chip Kelly, his first 2 years coaching was good, and then he decided, I want more control of this team, and then trade for his own guys.
You know what I've been watching on YouTube is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they do something. There's a show right now with Jacksonville. I'm going to bring it up. I forget what it's called. They do they do a show on YouTube, and we have Trevor Pryce. He'll be coming in a few minutes. But what is that show called? Look that up, Speedy. There's a Jacksonville Jaguars show right now, and I'm on to the second. I think it's the second episode, and they're doing exactly what the Jets are doing. Kansas City did it last year, going to the Super Bowl.
The Hunt.
The Hunt. That's it. The Hunt, and you guys can watch it on YouTube. Trevor Lawrence looks a lot bigger. He looks like he put on 15 pounds. 15 pounds of muscle this offseason. Christian Kirk looks like he's a different guy. Maybe it was Kyler Murray holding him back to be that elite guy, because this year everybody thought, I was questioning him going to Jacksonville, how good he was going to be at 10 touchdowns. He didn't miss a beat. Now they add another wide receiver after making a trade deadline. Calvin Ridley, he looks good. They interviewed him on the field in the first couple of OTAs. Calvin Ridley looks like he's in good shape. He's ready to go. Jacksonville could be so very dangerous this year. They really, really could. They were dangerous last year after surprising the world, after coming back from that Chargers just absolute debacle in the second half. It was a debacle.
Oh, yeah.
But he looks good, and he looks healthy, and watch out for Jacksonville.
Have you seen our guy Foye on there yet?
No, I didn't see him yet. No, no. It's really about Trevor Lawrence in the first episode and the offense, Kirk and Ridley. The second one is, obviously some of the injured players from last year that missed the season, and offensive linemen. I forget which offensive lineman missed the season.
Cam Robinson last year. Yeah.
Cam Robinson. So it was a little bit of Cam Robinson in the second episode, and following him around. So I expect it. We'll have next week or the next couple of weeks where we'll get the chance to meet some of the defensive players on that roster. But when we come back, we have them on. We will be talking to ex-Bronco, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman, and I believe future Hall of Famer Trevor Pryce, here on the Sports Loudmouths.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Of course my kid's in the right car seat. Well, I think he is.
Yeah, my kid's in a booster seat. He was ready to move up. He is ready, right?
Her car seat looks like the right size.
There are probably rules on when to move up to a booster seat, aren't there?
Rear facing, forward facing. I think I have it right.
Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? Don't think you know. Know you know. Go to safercar.gov/the right seat.
I know my child's in the right car seat, or else I wouldn't get in the driver's seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. This is the Sports Loudmouths.
I've got big butts and I can't not lie. Well, I've got big butts. I don't have a big butt, but I've got big butts. 631-672-3108 is the number to call. You are listening to the Sports Loudmouths. I'm your host, Errol Marks, my co-host, Speedy Petey. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week. They are live. You can interact with all the different, obviously, content and analysts that we have on the show, and you can interact with all the different stuff that we're talking about by going to the website. Check it out, Sports Loudmouths, which airs every single Wednesdays at 7 p.m. and Thursdays at 9 p.m. So tune in. Great guest, great content, and all craziness with the different callers. No callers tonight. I'm very surprised that we don't have Jeff stabbing me in the back like he always does. But I'm sure before the show is over, Speedy, we will get to hear his craziness on the show. But we do have a guest, and we haven't spoken to him for over a year. He looks like he's enjoying his
I'm outside eating on my car, listening to the birds sing, and I look. There's no light up here, so I look purple. So
you don't look like a Baltimore Raven. Is that what you're trying to sell us here?
I'm wearing a pink sweatshirt, so I look really wild. But this is what you get sorry I'm late, guys. I lost my phone. No joke.
It's okay. It's okay. We know that you're a busy guy. I just said tell Trevor Pryce that hopefully we can get him on the show. But I'm happy that you're here. We are talking to former Broncos, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman Trevor Pryce, a busy guy, enjoying his quiet time as he's no longer on the football field. But I'm sure he has his own thoughts of what's going on this offseason. A lot to get into with some of your old teams, the Broncos, the Ravens, and the Jets. All three teams were busy this year. And they really were. And let's go to the Broncos first, because obviously last year they had Nathaniel Hackett. We spoke to you about Nathaniel Hackett the last time you were on. You thought he would be a decent fit over there, but you said there's some questions to where that team could go, maybe because of the injuries and all that other stuff. But nevertheless, the Broncos fired Nathaniel Hackett after the first year. Russell Wilson did not look like the player that everybody thought he looked like with Seattle all those years. And then they add arguably the best available coach, trading away a first-round draft pick, which I was shocked that they would do that. But again, it is Sean Payton.
Don't be.
What were your thoughts to Sean Payton now taking over as the head coach of the Denver Broncos?
We had a reunion of the Super Bowl team, and I showed up, and I took my daughter with me, and we met the new ownership group. And you could see the seriousness in this man's face, right, when we met him. And you could see that the new owner is not a football guy. He's just not, right? So he's not going to make decisions, rash decisions on personnel, rash decisions on coaching and say, hey, this scheme works here because of this. That's not what he is. What he is a man whose family made a fortune going from good to great, like the book says, right? The Walton family book. And that's what he saw an opportunity to do. How do we go from good to great and start at the top and work your way down? Sean, here are the keys. Do what you want. We'll pay whatever price. And I think now people are starting to see what owning and running an NFL team, because now we know more, right? Social media, what that entails. And it is a weird existence because it's a lot of money, but there's a lot of pressure. And how do you alleviate pressure? Is you get the very best that's available, and the cost be damned. Especially when you have that kind of money they have. It's like the money, when the money's out of object, you swing for the fences. I mean, if they could have dug up Newt Rockne, I'm sure they would have. You know what I mean? But it was kind of like, we're not going to get some young hotshot coach that's never coached before, and they're not going to do what the LA Rams did, even though the Sean McVay thing worked out. It's proven commodities when you're that family. What's the proven commodity? What works at Walmart? This works at Walmart. So we know what a proven commodity means, and that's how they're running the team. And then you get the very best people who have a proven commodity, and you give them the keys and give them total autonomy. And you say, Russell Wilson, you're not bringing nobody here. You don't have an office. We're not doing none of that. This is all going to change. This man's in charge. You are not in charge. We pay you $50 million a year, but we can easily not pay you $50 million a year and eat that cap charge because we don't care if we have that much money. You know what I mean? And after you put down roots in a town like Denver and you build a big house and you're part of the, you know what I mean? So he's fighting for his life as well.
Yeah.
That's just the reality of it.
So have you played against the Sean Payton offense in your career? I know you being in the AFC, maybe not a lot. Is it as complex as people think?
I don't remember how complex the back end was. I know the offensive linemen were dirty. I know he teaches that stuff. I know he teaches. They were supposed to. I remember playing them in New Orleans. They were supposed to be the new physical standard of line play, and they were just dirty tactics, and they were really wide. And I remember they would hit me in my head, and my helmet came off and things like that. So from a backhand standpoint, I don't know how complicated it can. I just know a lot of it's old school stuff. A lot of it's very much old school. We hand the ball off here and hand the ball over there, and it's one-on-one. It's not it's not real. The game is not real complicated, right? You can take a middle school football coach and give him the Colts if he's playing his high school team, and he will win. You know what I mean? And he'll run SpongeBob right, SpongeBob left, and we win, right? That's just what it is. So that's the way he looks at it. My guys are better than your guys. We can scheme up some stuff, but if the guys aren't better, what's the point of the scheme? The scheme design. Every offensive scheme is designed to get somebody one-on-one. So it's designed to get the running back because the quarterback is out of it because he doesn't block. So really, you have 10 blocking 11, which means one guy's unblocked. Which means running back, you have him. We'll get the rest of them, but you have him. But if I'm supposed to be blocked and I make a play, that's how you get a 2-yard loss. You know what I mean? So it's really simple, right? And people make a big deal of it. It's not that hard. It's just who's better physically.
We are talking to former Broncos, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman Trevor Pryce. And look at the coaching staff that he brought in. And he brought a significant coaching staff in that can do all of that. I mean, Sean brought in his assistant head coach is Paul Kelly. He brought in Vance Joseph, a great defensive coordinator, a guy that understands how to run a defense and was successful somewhat as a head coach. And a lot of players like him. Joe Lombardi, a very good offensive mind, brought in other guys that are very, very noticeable when it comes to the league and building a roster of great players. And then over there, bringing in Mike Westhoff. Everybody knows him in New York as a Jet, Miami.
I played for Mike.
Yeah. He's one of the best special teams guys in NFL history. And Sean Payton even really preaches that and bring in Mike. I've interviewed Mike Westhoff, one of the nicest guys. I thought he was done 32 years in the NFL. I did not think he was going to come back. And the only way he was coming back is probably Sean Payton. And he comes from a Bill Parcells type of coaching staff. So what were your thoughts to the coaching staff that he brought in?
I think my thought would be you don't see the young whiz kid because I don't think Sean has any patience for that, or he doesn't have experience. Young whiz kid coach, whiz bang. You know what I mean? The Kyle Shanahan, and those are good coaches. Like Kyle Shanahan's gonna be an NFL coach for the next 40 years of his life. He'll eventually become the old man. You know what I mean? But I don't think Sean has the patience to wait for that to happen. So you get a Mike Westhoff. I played for Mike. I played for Mike 10 years ago, and he was old then. You know what I mean? So Mike's funny as all hell, but it is one of those things where veteran leadership, veteran age means something, experience means something, because again, the game is not that complicated. Until they say you can play with 2 footballs at the same time, it's not going to change much, right? So when you have people that have been around the game for a long time, have seen it all, there's nothing you're going to throw at them. It's like what Rex Rice would say. I have forgotten more than you've ever known. You know what I mean?
He almost came to this coaching staff. I
was rooting for that because I'm telling you, if Rex winds up in Denver, they become a different team very quickly. I was like, please let that happen. Please let that happen, and it didn't. I was praying for that to happen.
You don't like Vance?
No, I like Vance plenty, but I just know what Rex brings to a meeting room.
Sexy Rexy.
And what the players would get out of that. You know what I mean? And plus, again, Sean's a old school, hard ass coach. And they're about to go through it. This is not that gook and mess from the future. That's gone, Bubba.
Russ is not going to be screaming on the sidelines at everybody.
Oh no. And all that future pliability, get it out of here.
I've heard that Sean didn't want to honestly coach Russell Wilson. There were stories coming out. He had no interest in coaching Russell Wilson.
I'm sure he didn't. I'm positive he didn't. Yeah, you watch that tape, well, you wouldn't want to coach him, risk my career on that. Look at this. I can't fix this. But I guess he can't. Enough money. Like I said, the Walton people, all my people, they were going to get their guy. They had to give him a piece of the team. They were going to get their guy.
Wow. You think they would do that for Sean?
Who else was there? Remember, these are not football people. These are not people who, somebody's uncle was a GM or a scout and they grew up with the game. No, they're looking at this as an asset. And what do you do when you buy an asset? You put money into the asset to make it a better asset.
Right.
And that's a very easy solution. And it's like, whatever we have to do to get this, that's what we're going to do.
So, and your other team made headlines too with the Ravens, Lamar Jackson getting the highest pay, becoming the highest paid quarterback in NFL history.
Finally,
and he did it. This is something unique. He did it with himself being his own agent. So, what do you think of that contract? And do you think this could be a trend, like a lot of these players becoming their own agents?
I think this is going to become a trend. I think, as I was saying to my kids, I was like, the part of it that I didn't get is you are 20. He's 26 years old, 25 years old, somewhere.
25.
He's 25. Mm-hmm. And instead of enjoying your off season with $100 million, you are trading emails with Eric DaCosta. Like, come on. Are you for real? Are you honest to God, you live in Miami, you are single. He has no children.
Lives with his mom.
He lives with his mother. And you are spending your off season instead of buying $1 million hypercars, you are trading emails with the Ravens GM. Like, come on, man. Like, for 3%, you just go, look, I'll be over here drinking Wet Willies at
I love the Wet Willie places.
Yeah, I'll be on South Beach. Y'all let me know when this is finished. But you got to drag yourself through the mud, and it's really just not. I just thought it was not worth the $1 million he saved or whatever it was.
I think he saved. I think it was $7.5 million.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Now you have 195 instead of 200 and 203. Oh gosh, you know what I mean? But you can make that money. You're not going to get that time back that you spent in the media. Everybody talking about you. It's just that part I didn't understand. For him, for a quarterback, it just makes forget what the money's going to be. What the money is. He was going to get $50 million a year one way or another, whether he did it or Clutch Sports did it or whatever. That's what the market rate is. You know what I mean? And so instead of enjoying yourself and celebrate, as soon as season's over, I'd have went and bought the biggest house and the biggest piece of beach land. But nope, I'm trading emails with and the place where I work wants to come see me at my house. Man, get the hell out of here. That's not worth it. No way, man. No way.
That's
the part I didn't understand.
I just feel bad for Lamar Jackson because I think that the Baltimore Ravens were playing with him. They were playing mind games with him. And I'll tell you this right now. If he had his contract last year, he plays in the playoffs. They absolutely win in the first round, absolutely knock off the Bengals, and they match up very, very well against Buffalo. They match up very, very well against all the other teams. They could have went to the Super Bowl. Who knows?
I believe the problem it started when he won MVP, and they didn't sign him that year.
I agree with you.
Because they would have signed him for $30 million. If you'd put $30 million from him, he'd have took it. As soon as he won MVP, he said, "You have 3 years left in your contract. We don't care. We're going to the table now because it's going to just get more expensive." You know what I mean? You're not going to all of a sudden fall off a cliff. He didn't. He's not going to, right? So I think that was a mistake on their part. And the longer you wait, wait till you see Trevor Lawrence's next contract, or for God's sakes, Brock Purdy's, or whoever's next. You know what I mean? Yeah, whoever's next. So the money's one of these guys is going to make $100 million a year. It's coming. It's as clear as day. It's coming, right? And there's nothing we can do about it. It is coming. You know, so if we know it's coming, enjoy your time with it. You know what I mean? There's no way I'd have let him. One of the guys that helps run the team, his son played baseball with my son at their school. There's a private school where we live. And I talk to him every time I see him in a game, and I'd be like, "What are y'all doing, man?" He was like, "I don't know." You know, so it's one of those weird things. But that was my only takeaway. My takeaway was not the $7 million. My takeaway was not the money. Everybody's going to be rich, you know what I mean? But to drag yourself through that, for why? You know what I mean? I don't get it.
You should, with that pink sweatshirt that you're wearing, or red sweatshirt, should put "Y" on the front of it. Why?
Yeah.
Why with a exclamation point right there? Why?
Big question mark. Why?
You'll probably make a lot of money off that.
Probably.
You know that.
Probably.
Perfect. It's perfect for you. We were talking to former Broncos, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman Trevor Pryce. Odell Beckham signs with the Baltimore Ravens. He was a hot commodity. He had 5 teams watch him play on the field. The guy hasn't missed a beat, everybody says, and obviously would have probably been the MVP of the Super Bowl when the Rams won if he didn't tear his ACL again in that game. He was playing outstanding. What type of player do you believe Odell Beckham's going to be this year? Is he the missing piece for Lamar Jackson to really take that next step?
I don't know. You just know. You don't know. You know what I mean? So, I was telling somebody that you have to take away the names and say, look, every team has a wide receiver, right? Mm-hmm. Replace wide receiver, this guy with that guy. And the thing is, there's no such thing as a bad NFL player. Mm-hmm. That doesn't exist, right? The difference between Odell Beckham Jr. and, you know, the guy that's third team for the Detroit Lions, it is minimal. It's just who does a coaching staff trust? And sometimes that trust doesn't have any logic to it. Mm. I just like the way that guy looks, so throw him the ball, right? That's just so you don't know until it shows up. Just because he's Odell Beckham, he's not the first wide receiver on the planet Earth, right? He's like, oh, here's a great idea. Let's take this oblong pigskin thing and chuck it that way towards that guy. It's not the way it works, right? Every team has one of those, right? And there's so to think that he is going to be that much of an upgrade, even with some of the sorry receivers that Ravens have, but sorry is negligible. Like,
I got what you're saying.
That's the one word. You know, I'm very good at diction. I can't pronounce that word.
You know what it is? I'm not. So you're better than I am, and I can't pronounce that word.
So that's fine. It messes up the G and the B. Messes up my tongue.
Don't tell your wife that.
Yeah. So anyway, the difference is minuscule. How's that? Right.
That's perfect. There you go. There you go.
Between the guys. But when Odell Beckham Jr. scores a touchdown, it's just inflated, and it's just you see, look at Odell Beckham there. Well, there's 100 guys on planet Earth that can do that. They're all in the NFL.
The third string guys in the Lions might get their chance this year with all the receivers they have suspended.
Oh,
there you go. So he'll become Odell Beckham Jr. You have to become Odell Beckham Jr. Right?
You sure Odell doesn't have to become himself now?
Yeah, right. You have to become. Yeah, live up to that, and have to live up to that. They have to throw you the ball. But I can tell you right now, when they put the playbook up there, it says X receiver. It doesn't say Odell Beckham. It says X. You're the X. Run that route.
X marks the spot.
Yeah, X, Y. You're X, Y, or Z. Yeah, but Odell Beckham. No, you're not. You're X.
You're X. I'm John Harbaugh, and you're my X.
You're X. Go run the route. And if you're open, we'll throw you the ball. If not, we'll throw it to Z.
You're my X-rated player.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
So we saw throughout the year debate with going on with a lot of these players. Cooper Kupp was the one that started, and Odell was another one that furthered it, and a lot of guys did it. Was the grass versus the turf debate. We've interviewed a lot of ex-NFL players. Where do you stand on that? Do you prefer the grass or the turf?
I don't care about either one. As long as it's not AstroTurf.
I knew he was going to say that.
Yeah, as long as it's an AstroTurf, I have no preference. You know, it's soft. You know, I've played in the Raiders dirt field, so that sucks. I played when New Orleans with a Superdome had carpet. That's other than that, it's whatever. I know the grass in Florida. I remember being very fast. I grew up in Florida, so that track, the dirt in Florida and the grass the St. Augustine grass is different. Like I run really fast in Florida. So my son runs really fast in Florida. He was like, Dad, I don't know what it is about this Florida grass. My son, he's like, I don't know what it is about. I said, I'm telling you, it's Florida grass, man. That's why. So everybody in Florida runs so fast. It's the grass. No joke. It's a scientific fact. You run faster in Florida.
Now, by the way, we are talking to former Broncos, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman Trevor Pryce. As he says, you can run faster on grass in Florida just because it's Florida. Florida. He's selling Florida, the Florida talent. So all you Florida guys, you're faster because you live in Florida. And you play on Florida grass.
Those are Einstein scientific facts.
Just remember, you were born in Brooklyn, buddy. So you are a New York native.
Correct.
So you can say you were brought up in Florida, but you are a New Yorker.
Yeah, that goddamn New York grass is smooth.
Is there a reason why there hasn't been any New York players?
Right. They play on concrete and concrete.
We're playing on basketball courts.
Yeah. Cleats and concrete. You put on my cleats for what, man? That is a pothole.
We can't afford grass anymore. It's the taxes over here that killing us.
I always felt like you'd always see like college, like Ross, you see some kid from some high school in Brooklyn playing college football. You're like, how? You come from where?
Well, I come from
you went to high school in Brooklyn and they found you like, man, come on, you play football in Tim's, man. Come on, get out of here.
I was playing field hockey, baby. That's what I was doing.
Yeah. Oh,
I was tackling everybody.
We had some guys in Michigan that were from Brooklyn, and I was like, what? They were terrible too.
I'm sure they were, but you're not. And
nope.
As everybody knows, we are talking to former Broncos, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman Trevor Pryce. The New York Jets, another team you played for, my team, they have had a very good offseason. They really have. They made the move. They added Aaron Rodgers. Everybody was questioning the trade. They traded from 13 to 15. Everybody's, they gave up 2 first rounds. No, they didn't. They flip-flopped the first round. They still got the guy that they wanted. And Aaron Rodgers has to play 65% of the snaps, which he usually always does. So they're going to lose probably a late first-round draft pick. That's really all they gave up. For a guy like Aaron Rodgers, who's still an elite quarterback, I believe played with a broken thumb. He still led the NFC in touchdowns, and he threw 12 interceptions last year. The guy is an elite, and he played with a team that wasn't much of a team. Let's be honest, a bunch of guys, no-name guys. He made them Christian Watson into a star as a rookie. What were your thoughts when you heard that the Jets finally land their guy? Do you believe the New York Jets, with the acquisition of Aaron Rodgers and this team, are a favorite to go all the way to the Super Bowl this year?
From the outside looking in, I don't. they weren't that. Were they just a quarterback away, or they were like structurally different? Right? Was it Zach Wilson's fault they didn't go to the Super Bowl? I doubt it. It wasn't just him. So replacing one player in a 22-player team is not going to. Aaron Rodgers is good for 3 wins. So they won 7 last year. That's 10. Or they won 7 games.
They won 7 last year, but they were very close in a lot of the games, and it wasn't just Aaron Rodgers that they added. They added Al Woods. They added a lot of pieces.
They did what they added was they added a quarterback and a linebacker and a running back and a so-and-so. And every team has a quarterback and a linebacker. You know what I mean? So the difference between Aaron Rodgers and Jared Goff is in the eye of the beholder a little bit. You know what I mean? You can't argue with MVPs. You can't argue with that. You can't argue with Aaron Rodgers' baseball mechanics. He throws like a baseball player.
Yes.
You can't argue that. But you also can't argue the fact that Jared Goff also threw for 4,000 yards or whatever. You know what I mean? And it's like, or Kirk Cousins. Everybody wants to dump on Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins threw for almost 5,000 yards.
Yep.
You know what I mean? What's the difference if you take the camera, watch a football game, and don't watch a quarterback, just watch the ball leave and go to the receiver, right? You won't know who's throwing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
We say we're not watching it. We're going to watch from the defensive line back, right? We're watching all that, and the ball just goes from one place next, and we keep completing passes. That could be Aaron Rodgers. That could be Raymond Rodgers. You know what I mean? You just don't know. You just don't know who it is. So, I would like to be a sports fan to say, oh, Aaron Rodgers is in town, so now they're going to win the Super Bowl. But that's just not how it works. That's not how it works. I will say that Woody Johnson, I played for Woody, and I've talked to Woody several hundred times. And, Woody's a certain age. You know what I mean? And he's like, and just like the Walmart people, he's like, the money is not, I do not care. I have enough money. I'm not getting any younger, and I really want to see this franchise succeed. If you want to be a part again, and Woody Johnson is not a football guy, so he wasn't going to be like, Sean McVay, give me a young. You know what I mean? Zach Wilson thing didn't work. I don't know why you draft a high school kid, what is literally a high school kid to go play NFL. I'm like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So, if he was a football guy, he'd have been like, yeah, we're not drafting that. That's not happening. So go get me Aaron Rodgers. Go get me Peyton Manning out of retirement. Go get me what he's like, I don't care what you have to do. That's the kind of conversation he has. Trade them all, trade all the picks. I don't give it. I don't care. I don't care. Pay him whatever. And he said that. He's like, I only have so much time left. You know what I mean? And so he wants to enjoy the little time he has left running this organization and see some success. And he is a good coach, so now he need a good quarterback. But the last coach picked the last quarterback, and again, I'd have been like, yo, your decision making process is terrible. That's a terrible pick.
And I will say that, I know a lot of people. You look at what Joe Douglas has done. His draft picks over the last 2 years, fantastic. I mean, he had a slam dunk last year. How many teams do you remember had the rookie of the year, offensive rookie of the year, and defensive rookie of the year? It's very few. Yeah. So what he did was impressive.
100%. But when you just blaringly miss on the quarterback, and everybody knew you were going to miss. Like, everybody knew it. It's like the kid is not big enough. He is not. You're going to put him in New York City. He comes from a small town. He goes from BYU to New York City. He doesn't have the shoulder width or the size or the strength or the composure to deal with the NFL right now at his age, and to throw his ass out there. Like that was doomed to fail. Everything else he did great. The wide receivers are great. The little short 5'10" linebacker is really great, right? I'm like, son, you might have a chance. Right, so, are they Aaron Rodgers away from winning the Super Bowl? You don't. I don't know. They're going to be better. They will be better.
They had the top 5 defense last year, and they're even better than they were last year. So they could be a top 3 defense, or maybe even the number 1 defense.
Yeah, well, they can be, but also the other teams got better as well.
No question. And they have Breece Hall coming back. If he's what he was before he got hurt,
I was at a game he blew out his knee.
Oh,
yeah, it was Denver, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, yeah, that was a game
they also lost All-Pro, I believe, one of the best offensive linemen in hockey in the NFL, in Elijah Vera Tucker. So they lost him in that game too. He tore his back.
I remember they trotted out. I remember watching Breece Hall running that game. I was like, Jesus Christ, look at this. He was good, man.
He's a good player. I mean, they've got the weapons. Garrett Wilson, I've heard so many good things about him. There's a lot. There's a lot to expect with this team. Even Jeremy Rucker, I don't know if you know who he is, Long Island native. No. The Jets drafted him in the 4th round the year before. He's a guy that everybody keeps talking about. He's looked really, really good on the practice field. I know it's just practice and it's without pads. We have to. And Aaron Rodgers said that at the press conference when they asked him. He believes that they're right where they need to be. That's what he said. But he also said you're a different player when you're wearing pads than when you're not wearing pads.
Let me. When they put on a different player when they put on, when you not even just putting on a deer just ran through our yard. Not even when you put on pads, when you put on the shiny pads and the shiny pants. When you put on the shiny pants and the lights turn on, you find out who's who very, very quickly. So, yeah, you have to – and when you're not getting hit, that's the difference. You want to know the difference between a quarterback and a quarterback? Zach Wilson is a quarterback. Zach Wilson can throw a football. Zach Wilson does not want to get hit, right? And that is his downfall. He doesn't want to hit because he's a small, slight guy. I think Bryce Young is going to run into that. That just doesn't work. You know, it's like Jim Trotter said, NFL is a genetic league. It's just what it is. It doesn't take a whole lot of skill. It's not like hitting a baseball or hitting a golf ball or hitting a 3-pointer. It's not. If you're big, strong, fast, you don't mind running other people, we'll find a spot for you. That's
very interesting.
That's a fact. That is a fact. And any NFL player will tell you that this is not a highly skilled endeavor. The quarterbacks and receivers are pretty skilled. Everybody else is out there on pure guts and just genetic gifts. You know what I mean? It's fast twitch muscles and bravery. You know what I mean? That's what it is. That's what it is. Fast twitch and bravery and Mountain Dew. That's it.
Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew.
You sure it's just Mountain Dew?
Some guys were hopped up on some stuff.
Well, we know Sean Payton did a lot of those stuff over there with the Saints.
Yeah, wilding out. They were wilding out. They were wilding out. I thought it's about to be a new dawn in Denver. They're going to be like, what?
See, maybe the carpet you played on in New Orleans was just the beginning, and now Sean Payton's
right. Yeah, I wouldn't be
whole
surprised.
scheme.
I wouldn't be surprised if he puts it in the practice fields. We're going back to carpet, guys. Toughing y'all up.
Maybe they'll have him play on the mountains instead. You're mile high. Go prove it.
Yeah. They're playing. Apparently, they're rebuilding the facility.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. And they just rebuilt it. He was like, "We'll do all this over again." And Greg was like, the owner was like, "Okay, Mr. Payton, whatever you need."
Yeah, the $50 million. Oh, we got it. We got it. We got it.
I sleep with $50 million on my mattress, so sure.
I'm sure he does. I'm sure he hides it like right between the cushion and the the box spring. There's $50 million right there.
$50 million.
Save it for a rainy day.
Yeah, just in case I go broke.
Okay, that guy's never going broke.
Yeah.
We are talking to former Broncos, Ravens, and Jets defensive lineman Trevor Pryce. One more question for me, Trevor. The last time we spoke, and I thought you had over 100 sacks, but I want to apologize. You were right there. 91 sacks in 187 games. Consistency. When do you believe the NFL is going to be calling you to go to the Hall of Fame? Because honestly, thank God Joe Klecko is going to see the day that he's going to watch himself go to Cooperstown. Not Cooperstown, the Pro Football NFL Hall of Fame. I want to see that, and I'm actually going to probably drive to Ohio to see that. And the Jets are playing in the game because I'm a Joe Klecko guy and I'm a Darrelle Revis guy. So both guys are going into the Hall of Fame. I would like to go and see that live. When do you believe, and I believe that the NFL should look at what you have done. You were a first-round draft pick, but you are 28th pick in the first round, and you almost had 100. I mean, it's ridiculous how you are not even called to say that you're on the list of guys that could be going to the Hall of Fame every single year.
Some of it, have y'all been keeping up with I've heard this before. Have y'all been keeping up with the baby Gronk stuff with
of course.
Okay, so when what's the linebacker's name? The linebacker from DC that got on him real bad. The big white kid. The guy that responded that like was like Baby Gronk's dad was like, "Hey, can we come in your podcast?" And
yes. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah. It was
Will Compton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that guy. And he said something that I've heard my dad say one time, or I heard somebody say it sometimes. They don't let wolves in the circus.
Oh, wow.
Right?
It's true.
And so I was never part of the circus,
Mm.
right? And and some of that Hall of Fame stuff is a little bit circus, a little bit of you had to have been one of the people that played the game and were part of the circus. I was just never.
You a quiet guy.
It was not. Yeah, I was quiet. I just had no interest in doing anything
stupid,
right? Or even promoting myself and that kind of thing. I just never wanted to do it. I wasn't interested. It was my job. It was not my lifestyle. You know what I mean? I think some of it has to be. You have to be one of those guys that wears a Super Bowl ring and does it.
I got you.
Things,
You have a Super Bowl ring. John Abraham doesn't have a Super Bowl ring. He has over 130 sacks. How is John Abraham not in the Hall of Fame?
That
ridiculous.
That one I don't understand. 130 sacks is a lot of.
It's ridiculous.
That's
How is he not in the Hall of Fame?
And people don't talk about him at all. Let me tell you something. That makes no sense whatsoever. It's 130 effing sacks. That is, like he's not mentioned, not even in
not at all.
Not
People
even
forget.
in passing. And that's so. Like I told you, I just like that. We just like that guy. We don't like that guy. And John Abraham and myself and there's some others. We're just not as good as we might have been. We're just not part of the circus.
Well, guess what? I'm going to start a petition on guys that I think should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to send it to that.
John Abraham is one that is a glaring omission, and you don't hear from him. You don't hear from him.
Me and him actually follow each other on Facebook, and I've been wanting to get Johnny on the show, and eventually we will get John Abraham on the show. And John, he's very open. He doesn't go out and say he should be in the Hall of Fame, but come on, in that time, in that 10-year span, who was better than John Abraham?
Nobody.
I mean, honestly, who
Nobody
was?
Seriously, there was
the only reason why he didn't get the respect because he played for the Jets and he played for Atlanta. That is the only reason why.
Well,
the
players respected him.
Yes,
the players went to the Pro Bowl. The players, nobody wanted him as like he was impossible to block. You know what I mean? But John was a quiet, unassuming guy. But to have 130 effing sacks, man, is
it's ridiculous.
That is bonkers, Jack.
It's ridiculous, and he did it, and he did it pretty fast. I mean, if you look at John Abraham's numbers,
it was like 12 years.
He played 192 games. You played, if I'm not mistaken, you played 180. So he only played 5 more games than you.
40 more sacks.
And he had 133.5 sacks.
He was impossible to deal with.
I remember him as a Jet. I mean, we haven't had a guy like him forever.
Nobody.
That's had a whole edge rushing drought after him.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
It's tough, man. It's a tough business. But I remember I played in interior. I played inside, and last time, it was just, if I'd have got to play in the system Aaron Donald played in, I'd have 300 sacks.
I believe it.
Run up the field as whenever I wanted to. You know what I mean? I played for some coordinators and some defenses that
you had. That Broncos defense was fantastic.
No, we were not. the ones there at the end of my tenure in Denver, the coordination was terrible.
Whatever it was, I mean,
the earlier ones were good.
Yes, whenever it was, when I watched you guys play, you used to beat the hell. And I remember in 97, 98 when the Jets.
That's very different.
Yeah, that made me sick to my stomach. That made me sick to my stomach.
That's not the team. That's not the best.
I know, but that made me sick.
2000.
Oh no, I'm talking about that team, and that team made me sick. Okay? That game made me sick. All right, because that was the best chance the Jets had to Super Bowl. And I think the Jets win the Super Bowl if they beat the Broncos in that game. So
they were the only team we were scared of. They were the only team we had any. The Jets were the only team we had any cause for concern with. Everybody else was just like goose poop. We just ran right through them. It's just like the Falcons. Like, get the hell out of here.
Michael Vick's only time in the Super Bowl.
No, that's not the one.
That's right. That wasn't Michael.
We played
Chester. That's right.
We played Chandler.
Michael Vick went to the West.
We had Michael Vick. We'd have panicked.
Yeah, Michael Vick went to the NFC title game. He didn't go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he didn't go to the Super Bowl.
That's right.
They lost to the Eagles. Yeah.
That's right. I remember that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Atlanta drafted LaDainian Tomlinson, and it was Atlanta. They drafted LaDainian Tomlinson and the Michael. Was it like that? And they flip flopped it. Was it Michael LaDainian Tomlinson? No. Was it LaDainian Tomlinson, Michael Vick in the same draft?
I don't remember. I'll look it up.
Go look that up. I'm pretty sure that Atlanta traded with I'm trying to remember that draft. I really am. I know Michael Vick was in that draft. I'm pretty sure. He went number 1. So LaDainian Tomlinson went there too.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. LaDainian Tomlinson went number 5.
I think they traded with each other.
Yes, they did.
I knew it. And I remember that draft because I remember that was the whole thing with Michael Vick and how they were connecting LaDainian Tomlinson. And LaDainian Tomlinson went down as one of the greatest running backs of all time. Michael Vick could have been great if he didn't do that stupid crap. But
yeah, sure.
But anyways, we love you, man. Keep up the good work. You always, every time you come on here, and this is the second time you've been on, but the last time you were on, you were fantastic. You give so much good information. And even now, man, you're fantastic. You really are.
I appreciate it.
You should be a commentator. Go reach out. You want me to help you out, man? You want me to reach out to ESPN?
I tried that once and I wasn't.
I think you could do. I did. Listen, if Damian Woody could do it, you could do it.
That's true. I could do it now. I couldn't do it then, but I'm kind of stuck in what I do now. You know what I mean? So
what are you doing now? I
run an animation studio.
Oh, look at you!
Yeah, I'm making a movie. I'm making a movie for Disney.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at you, man! Doing big things. You want me to be a voice? You want me to be a voice for you guys?
Hollywood's on strike, so let's tempo the enthusiasm here. let's squash some of that.
Let me tell you something. I'm not going to talk about it on air, but I can tell you what I think about Hollywood. Okay.
I can tell you what I know about Hollywood. It's a big difference.
I'll throw you a couple curveballs on what I think about it. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, we really appreciate you, man. Keep up the good work. And honestly, I didn't know you're doing an animation movie for Disney. That's fantastic. And if there's a premiere, you should invite us. We should.
It'll be 2025.
All right, man.
These things take a while.
Let's do it. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's do it.
All right.
All right, guys.
Trevor, you're the best. Trevor Pryce.
See me in the dark.
Future NFL Hall of Famer.
Me and John Abraham.
There you go. Together.
Together. Same class.
You like fists. You lock fists, baby.
We lock.
Like Tango and Cash. Your Tango, he's Cash.
Right? or Thelma and Louise. All right, guys. Goodbye.
Don't be driving crazy off a cliff, man.
Not yet.
Trevor Pryce, fantastic. He's funny, man. He'd be a great analyst. He really would be. Mm-hmm. He is great. He really is. He tells good stories. He gives you good information. And he knows his stuff. I knew Michael Vick and LaDainian Tomlinson traded for each other. I remember that draft very, very well. And I remember when Michael Vick almost took his team to the national. I think they went to the national championship and they lost in the national championship. And they were talking about Michael Vick being the next thing. And Atlanta, I remember it. Atlanta was drafting 5 and the Chargers were drafting 1.
Yeah.
And Michael Vick did not want to go to the Chargers. And he wanted to go to Georgia. He wanted to go to Atlanta. And as Atlanta needed a quarterback, Michael Vick was the guy. And I remember that. I remember what Atlanta had to give up to get Michael Vick too. So, and LaDainian Tomlinson still went down as one of the greatest running backs to ever play the game.
So everyone thinks Eli Manning was the original. I don't want to go to the Chargers. Meanwhile, it was Michael Vick.
It was Michael Vick. It was. I remember that. And I remember the Michael Vick story. Michael Vick, what he could have been, honestly. If Michael Vick didn't do the dumb things that he did. And listen, Everybody makes mistakes. Michael Vick came back and he still was an elite quarterback.
Scary good on the Eagles at the beginning of it.
I mean, the Eagles decided I don't remember the quarterback that they signed. They signed a quarterback. Michael Vick came in as a backup quarterback. He moved up from, I think, the third string to the number one after 2 injuries in the same game. I think it happened.
Yeah, they had Kevin Kolb. I don't remember who the other guy was offhand.
And he jumped. I think it was Foles, if I'm not mistaken.
Foles was drafted later. He was 2013. He came in, and
so
Vick was still the starter, and then Foles took his job that year when Chip Kelly was there.
Well, first of all,
McNabb was in Washington.
No. When Vick was there, McNabb was the reason why Vick was signed by the Eagles.
Oh, okay.
So McNabb was still there for 2 years.
Okay.
And Cobb was the backup.
Okay.
And Vick was the third guy. And they used Michael Vick in like if I'm not mistaken,
like
a wildcat thing for like the first year. And then Michael Vick had to, get accustomed to everything. And then Michael Vick did. And then Michael Vick became Michael Vick. For like 5-6 years. It was the greatest comeback. And Michael Vick, the crazy story about Michael Vick, when I watched the 30 for 30, Michael Vick owed so much to pay off the debt that he had. I think it was like $30 million in debt. Now, he could have claimed bankruptcy, and he didn't want to do that.
Wow.
And what he decided to do was he bet on himself, and he paid back every single debt that he had. Every single debt. He had to earn his way up. Now, he could have done it that way, and everybody attacks him for all the bad things he did. Go look at the good things Michael Vick has done. And now he's been a spokesman for, protecting animals, protecting dogs. Yes, he made a mistake. And dog fighting over there down south is so very popular, and it's a moneymaker. So I'm not saying he was right for what he did, because he wasn't.
No.
But why was Michael Vick the one being attacked? There's so many other people that should have been attacked and so many people around the world that are doing that should be attacked. Millionaires.
Right. It's always good to see him be an advocate for that too.
But he stands up, and Michael Vick understands what he has done, and he's still to this day an advocate for that. So it shows you that he grew, and he stood up now, obviously, and he's continue on after his career. So, I mean, it's for all the good that you hear and bad that you hear of somebody else, you have to look past all of that when you look at the growth of the player, growth of the man. So that's a crazy story too.
Yeah.
Michael Vick. I mean, there's a lot, and that's the greatest thing about sports. Because I was alive for a lot of crazy things, and I talk about it too, because Speedy is 28 years old. I'm 41. And when I look at the past and kind of like look at the future, where sports is going, we were just talking about it with Trevor Pryce about the money these quarterbacks are making. They're maxing out at 50, 60 million. I mean, the NBA, look what Damian Lillard got last year. He's the highest paid player yearly. He's making 60 million a year. I mean, this year, he is at the max, he's making 48. And that's because he got paid 70, 80 million last year.
Right, he would have had to get 72 then.
Yeah, so you look at the money factor of what these players are making out. I mean, 1 year of this, their kids will never have to work a day in their life. It's crazy, and now money is it's breaking to higher heights. I mean, you look at the Chiefs, and you look at, obviously, the quarterback over there in Mahomes. Mahomes signed the first $500 million contract for a player. But the way they spread out the money, the Chiefs win on that signing, especially the way and what these quarterbacks are. Jalen Hurts is making $45, $50 million a year after 1 year of great football. Lamar Jackson has deserved that for years. And Trevor, I know Trevor Pryce has his own thoughts to it, and I think he's right about a lot of things he said about Lamar. Okay? Lamar was saving a penny, for what? If he had the right agent, this thing would have been over a long time ago.
By the way, we have a new caller, as it appears.
All right, who do we have?
Oh, wait, no, he hung up, whoever it was. Never mind. We had a caller. I guess not.
All right.
But I think we do have Chaz back, though.
All right. Chaz, you there?
Am I? I don't know.
You look good, man. You're a backwards hat. You're looking good, man.
Hey, I am. I only own one hat. We've talked this before, right? We've had this conversation. This is it.
know.
This is my Aztec hat. I own one hat.
You want
one
me to
hat.
send,
That's it.
One
hat.
Do you want me to send you a new hat, man?
What? No, I own one hat. Why do I need 40 fucking hats? I'm an Aztec fan. I got one hat.
Yeah, but I can still hook you up.
He
with
wants
a
to
hat.
be an advocate for one hat.
Hold on 1 second. I actually have a brand. It's called Flawn Inc. I could send you one of my hats.
I wear nothing. I won't wear. My brother's got brand. I wear nothing. I wear Aztec's hat. One hat.
He stands by one hat.
I will not wear another hat.
You are one interesting guy. Let me tell you.
All right. So here's where I'm at. I got Jonathan's plays here.
Oh, awesome. How is Johnny boy?
Well, he wants to know what his numbers are. What did he do last week?
All right, Speedy. What are the numbers?
Both of you were both Errol and Jonathan were both 1 and 3 last week.
It's been horrible the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, you know what?
Finally, baseball.
We did okay. We did okay. So I'll be helping out this week, and I have another Saturday horse. But let me see what Jonathan says. He says tonight, Tampa Bay team total over 5.
Okay.
Tonight, Padres Guardians game under 8.5. Tomorrow, Orioles team total over 4. You know what? That's such a smart way to bet on baseball. Doesn't always work out, but it's gambling for a reason. Now, this kid's a pretty good handicapper, as you know. That whole, if the team is going to score how many runs, they're going to win. It works a lot of times, but you got to bet it right. And that's, as you know, that's kind of where I'm. I think my weirdness is I focus more on how I'm betting than who I'm betting or how much I'm betting.
Well, the next 2 weeks, sports is really going to be left to really baseball. I mean, basketball's over, hockey's over. I mean, there is some CFL and all that other stuff. There is football going on.
Well, okay, excuse me. Do you not own a sports network, podcast network?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Do you not have a show on it? That's Saturdays in Canada, and you just bashed, right, Petey? Am I missing something here?
I didn't bash anything.
You just bashed to the next 2 weeks. You said are going to suck, and it's on week 2 and week 3.
I just said there's nothing really going on in sports, in American sports. Does that make more sense for you?
No, but you should have just ignored the whole negative aspect and focused on. But it doesn't matter because on our network we have Saturdays in Canada. That would have been the best way to hear.
I watched your show, buddy.
Is this recorded, or can we cut this out and redo it, or what?
No,
we're live. We're live, Chaz.
We're live.
We're live, just like your show, Saturdays in Canada, live on Thursdays now.
Yep. All right, so here's what I got. I got Wes and I went over the plays for Saturdays in Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not giving them out because I that's the reason. Last week we were 3-1, and I brought you up, Petey, because I said, Petey would not be surprised that Wes is 3-1 because he went on that little tear where he's 3-1 every week.
Only 3-1, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And get me wrong, that last one was weird because it was the last game of the week, and I wanted to bet, and I came so close to hedging, right? Because I was live to a lot of plays with this fourth game because we hit all the first 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a 10-team. That's a 4-teamer. It's 10-1. So I'm sitting on some nice money. So let me hedge. You know what? Here's the thing. It's Black Hawk West. If I hedge, I'll regret it. And son of a bitch, I didn't hedge and I regretted it. What are you gonna do? So yeah. So what time is it on the network tomorrow? Our show.
Wasn't it 7? You said.
Whatever time that's what it is. Whatever was that 7?
You started at 7, yes.
Yeah. And the reason it's important that we start at the top of the hour is because we at 20 after we reference 420 every show.
Yeah, of course.
And it's 420 somewhere, but when it's 420 in Europe, it's great because it's really easy to connect Europe to Canada because it's just easy. I mean, the Queen's money. Those Canadian football players don't make much like the NFL players, but they get paid in money that has the Queen's face on it. So, so it's the last week of the regular season of USFL, and if you watch, I apologize. When you watch Saturdays in Canada tomorrow night, 7:00 Eastern, on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, you will see my opinion of the USL football in relation shipped to the CFL football. But it is night and day, and it's different. And we talk about it. We've talked about it on the show. The whole field's different. The number of people is different. How they run. Wes always loves the fact that the East, West, North, South thing. If the first time he turns, because I'm not the first person he turned on to CFL. CFL's like his little crack bag, and he gets you tasting it, and then you like it. Because I don't know about you guys, but I'm a pool guy. I've always been a pool guy. I live in San Diego. We do pool year round. There is nothing better than having football on my phone by the pool in August and July.
Oh, you don't want to go in the ocean because of the sharks. Don't be a liar.
No, I go in the ocean. I do body surf, but I had to give up body surfing. And this summer, actually, technically it is summer, but here we're still dealing with June gloom. I'm actually going to start boogie boarding for the first time in my career, because it's either that or get soldier. What is it when they take this out?
Shoulder surgery. Yes.
Replacement surgery.
Yeah.
So shoulder replacement. I don't want that. I can move my arms.
Is your rotator?
Yeah. You know what? Here's the thing. When you're reaching for a beer mug, you shouldn't get a stinger that knocks you on your knees in the kitchen. That's just my, I told the doctor. I said, it hurts when I do this. The son of a bitch, I'm not kidding you. He says to me, then don't do that. Right? I mean, I'm paying $40 for a copay, and he's doing who was that, Henny Youngman? Who did that joke? All right, but I'm going in. I'm going out. I've done really well with the USFL the last 3 weeks. I kind of got a feel for the teams, and that's what Canada has. First of all, they have that extra team, and they also have the ability to they spread out. They spread out, and they're consistent. Plus, we got data, real data. The rosters are some different, but the USFL and XFL, they just kind of created them this year, and so. Though the USFL was here last year, it's not good football. I'm sorry, guys. No disrespect to those guys that are working hard, but it's really I don't know. What's the Houston and Tulane? What's that conference?
Houston.
No, in college.
American.
Yeah. Okay, right. If you're watching the SEC, you could tell it's not AAC, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing. It's not different.
But Tulane beat USC in the Rose Bowl.
But you look what you did if you bet my Tulane, because on championshipfootballs.com, we sell the Tulane football for their Cotton Bowl. Think about that. If you would bet in the beginning of the season Tulane would win the Cotton Bowl, how much odds would that have been?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
10,000 to 1, probably.
Maybe making a bowl game must have been.
Yeah, I know. I know. All right, so I've got Kings Barn on Saturday. Let me give you that play. So, again, we've got 4. We go over every game. So this is how Saturdays in Canada works. First segment, we go over the 4 games from last week. How do we do? Why do we do what we do? It really is kind of like school for sports betting, like the School of Rock, where you're learning, but you're sports betting.
Are you Jack Black?
No, oh my God! You know what? He's got more talent in his little pinky than Chaz has in his body. I'm such a big fan of his. But yeah, so it really is. It's a good week for me because I'm finishing up now, and I don't have to ever again look at USFL, and I'll just be able to focus on CFL. It's only, guys, there's 9 teams, 4 games. You could do the data in like 12 minutes. Did you ever see what a Saturday of data for college football looks like?
No.
It's 87 games. I got every first quarter line, every first half line, every second half line, every game line.
That's the best time for sports, especially for betting, is when college football starts.
It starts at 9 in the morning, and it goes all the way. The last game, like UNLV, will kick off at 7:30 our time. Yeah. So, we're talking 14 straight hours. Mm-hmm. People wonder why I don't really bang on the NFL.
Those Hawaii games that start at 11:30.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let me get you that horse, because what it is, it's a leftover horse. He's running at Monmouth, right? We talked about Monmouth last time. It's close to you. Race 10 on Saturday, the 17th. Confirm that, Petey, would you? Because they had some that ran Sunday this week on me. Normally, all the horses I've been playing have been running on Saturdays, but is that the 17th Sunday? I mean Saturday.
That's Saturday.
Yeah, you're right. So King's Barn is his name. And again, the name will be familiar because he ran in some of the prep races early. He's number 8, race 10, Saturday, King's Barn. So that I give out there only because the Daily Racing Form is sending me the plays, and I send it to you. And then did I mention we have 4 plays on Saturdays in Canada?
No.
Yeah, you mentioned there's 4 games. I'm sure you had 4 plays.
Yeah, so yeah, you really should check that out. And then so let's see what we have here. This is the USFL. All right, so Saturday there's 2 games. Now there's many great articles out there on the playoff scenarios. But there's like one division is the 4 teams are all over 500 and one is they're all under 500 kind of thing. You know, it's not exactly, but work with me on it. It's pretty damn close. So I'm just going through and I'm looking at the data. I know I've got a pretty good feel for what these teams are doing. And they're one thing I will give them, they are consistent. They're pretty consistent, these teams. So if they're getting like 265 yards rushing or offense a game, then they're going to end up somewhere between 250 and 280. They're really not, you're not seeing teams that are averaging 66 rushing yards a game going off for 220 or 180 or anything. It's not happening. So in the first game, which is Saturday at 1 o'clock your time, 10 o'clock here, we're doing the second half Jazz. Where we do first half Pittsburgh, second half New Jersey. I would sit here and tell you the playoff scenarios, but I don't care. And the other aspect of it is that I think pretty much on this game, whoever loses goes bye-bye and the winner's got to hang around. That's the weird part because when it's elimination week, as you guys know, they're watching the scoreboard. They know what's going on. So what do you do? And we deal with it every year in the NFL. Those games where at 1 o'clock the team clinches. So the 4 o'clock game, what does the team do? They show up? Do they play football? What do they do? Because they're human beings. When you lose, it takes a little out of you. Yeah, well.
Especially week 18. The Giants starters or Giants backups play better than the starters against the Eagles.
So later on Saturday, Birmingham at Memphis. This is what we're doing. Birmingham's the best team in the league. They're the defending champions. They're just better than everybody. We're going to bet them, and then we're going to bet them again at the second half. So no matter what happens in the first half, normally the way it works is this. If they're up 37-3 at halftime, blow off bet in the second half. Take your money and go for it. So, because if I bet them, like in the first game, I'm betting Pittsburgh only first half, New Jersey at second half, nobody for the game. This game, I'm betting Birmingham first half and game, and then again at the second half, I just think they're going to just beat them up. New Orleans is Sunday at 1 o'clock East, 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. New Orleans at Houston, we're going with New Orleans. And the last game is Philadelphia at Michigan. It is Sunday night, 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 o'clock out here in San Diego. And I have the famous brackets. The brackets are a sign that I use to say, hey, you're only going to bet this if. And usually the if is you got money in your account. Don't put more money in to chase this play, but if you got money, bet this. And it's also the fourth game. And I do that for both Canadian and USFL football. Of course, going forward, it'll only be the US or only the CFL that I do it. I always bet a 4-teamer every single week. Even if I don't like anybody, even if I'm forcing a pick, only because I sweep the board occasionally. When I sweep the board and you get 10-1 or 12-1 even sometimes, you know what? It changes your weekend. You sweep the board and you're betting right, you should come out with a week's pay. And again, the week's pay is a week's pay. I don't care who gives it to you. Sometimes you got to wait for your money when you're betting. Just remember, I'm in California, guys. It's illegal here.
Are those your plays?
I just went through the whole.
I got it.
Whole, there's not 4. I'm not going with 4. I'm just giving you everything I got.
You want me to, God.
Well, hold on one second. Only because I'm just letting you know. At any point in time, the FBI could knock down my door for betting illegally because I'm in California. And if that's the case and they drag me away, you just finish the segment.
Going after
and when you're done with the segment, you just say, always be cashing. And I'm good with that.
Okay.
So just so you know, the last time I want to get a pen and paper out because the last time you gave me a winner right away.
Yeah. All right. I have my winners, and 2 of the games are going on right now. Okay. So I have the Blue Jays. They were actually not favored in this game. I have them on the money line against the Orioles tonight.
That was the no-hitter that I was telling
I had
John,
the
because you know
Orioles.
Jonathan's a Birds fan.
Right.
Kid's named Camden, for heaven's
I
sake.
had Toronto. I had Toronto tonight.
Now, the kid didn't get the no-hitter, or he did?
No, it's still going on.
Well, because he had a no-hitter going like through 7 innings.
It's still going on. It's in the 9th inning. It's still 3-0. The other game I have is I didn't think it was going to be this bad. Cincinnati and Kansas City, and I had Cincinnati on the money line in this game as too. But I didn't think it was going to be 7-1. I mean, I expected Cincinnati to win this game. Kansas City stinks. Okay, so that was a game. That was an absolute, absolutely hit.
The Reds will win the NL Central just because they're the only team that doesn't lose to the Athletics.
Yep. I have Baltimore tomorrow. Tyler Wells versus Colucci. Right. It's Colucci.
So that's the same as Jonathan, right?
Yep. I have Baltimore winning tomorrow as their favorite on the money line, and I also have. Where's the other game that I have? I have Chicago and LA tomorrow. And I have, as Chicago going into LA is the underdog, I have Chicago winning on the money line tomorrow.
So that's the White Sox, though, not the Cubs.
Yes, Chicago White Sox, yes.
Wow. Well, because remember, in the old days, that would be the Cubs. the White Sox didn't go to LA unless they were playing in the World Series, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, I have Chicago winning on the money line. Another team that is not favored in a game. I had in tonight's game. I had Toronto. I was looking at the game, and there was just something about this particular game where I thought, being that they weren't favored to win against Baltimore that Baltimore will win tomorrow. But
well, they're down. It looks like they're down to the final out.
Yes,
Baltimore has the tying run at the plate in the bottom of the 9th. And Hicks is up, and Hicks is
Aaron Hicks.
He's been hitting well.
Was that Aaron Hicks?
Yeah,
Aaron
Hicks.
He's been hitting well. He's been hitting very, very well.
They scored runs. He just did something to put the ball in play.
There you go. I still think obviously the Blue Jays are going to win, but
yeah, you know what? When you get to the 9th inning, the way you're looking at that game is two-sided. It's of course you have Toronto. You just need them to close it out. If you've got Toronto given a run and a half, you don't mind they just gave up a run. You need the game to end, and you're only 1 out away. And then you got, God forbid, if you got the over and they tie it up, you got a real good shot of winning the over, because in the MLB regular season, that guy starts at second base, changes everything on the betting the totals.
If you want me to give you a 5th pick, I have the Yankees winning tonight too. So.
And they're playing the Mets, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the way the Mets are situationally hitting, that seems like a pretty safe bet.
I had the Yankees winning tonight too. So, but that's 5. I have my picks. So there you go. And that was Let's Parlay. We didn't have the drop tonight. I want to apologize to the fans. Listen, I love the drops. I love the drops that we get made, and we're going to be starting a new drop. We have a new segment, which we're going to do with all the guests next week. It's going to be called All Righty Then. I'm going to ask 5 questions to all the guests every single show, and they're going to be identical questions. They're going to be funny and interesting questions, and we're going to get their answers, and we're going to compare and contrast those answers at the end of the week for all the guests and see if one of them or 2 of them answer the questions right. So, or answer the questions almost identical. That's what makes it so interesting, because they're going to be questions that most people would probably ask them in some kind of way if they're hanging out with their buddies or hanging out with their wives. And I'm sure they all have the same answers or different answers that come to the same. So anyways, Chaz, we really appreciate you as always. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to cover your place, so hopefully we'll have a big week.
Yes, absolutely. Chazzy
Always
boy.
be cashing, guys.
Let's parlay. Again, I want to apologize to the fans. We didn't have the drop, but it was still great. Do we have a guest?
No, we have a caller. He got in a bad service area. He's trying to call back now.
Right.
The one
Is
from
he on?
before. He's on now.
All right. Who are we speaking to?
You were speaking to Thomas Downey.
Thomas, what's up, man? How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
Well, we're happy to have you on, a new guest, a new fan. As everybody knows, we are the Sports Loudmouths. And what would you like to speak about?
Probably about the Yankee game right now. I'm watching it right now.
Mm-hmm. So what's your question?
What's it called? I heard about the Mets player who got ejected for having that sticky substance on his hand.
Yep, Drew Smith, who's probably been their third best reliever this year.
Mm-hmm. You know what's so
boy.
interesting? I was talking to one of the fans through text message today and telling me that it's only the New York teams that are cheating as much as they are. This is the second time the Mets have been caught with a sticky substance. This year it was 3 times for the Yankees. One with the same guy who was caught with sticky stuff, and everybody wants to talk about the spider tab or whatever the hell they call the spider tack or whatever the hell it is that was brought out by Garrett Cole. And because all these other guys, including the Yankee players that have been caught with this sticky substance, they're saying that Garrett Cole is cheating as well, which hasn't been found or thought of this year that he was cheating. So, with the Yankees and the Mets, the interesting thing about both of these teams is both teams should be playoff teams. The Mets have spent over $1.2 billion. Steve Cohen has spent $1.2 billion in the last 2 seasons on signing players and bringing in free agents. It hasn't worked. I've been saying this to a lot of Met fans. A lot of Met fans think I'm a hater. It's not. Max Scherzer was, to me, and we talked to the Nationals analyst who called the show. We had her on the show, and she told me I am a hater and that Max Scherzer has never been hurt, and that Max Scherzer is going to, for the next 2 or 3 years, is going to be one of the elite pitchers for the Mets. I said he's too old. He had shoulder problems last year when he was traded to the Dodgers and all this other stuff. She said that he was fine. It wasn't nothing to do with his shoulder on why he didn't pitch well or whatever excuses that she made. She was wrong. And I told Speedy we need to get her back on the show, and not to throw her under the bus, even though I love doing that to a different analyst because a lot of them
By different analysts, you mean Anthony Scultore.
He's another one. Anthony Scultore he writes, he's the lead Ranger blogger who is a big Ranger, diehard New York Ranger fan who likes to give me his crap that the Islanders stink every single year, but for some reason the Islanders at the end of the season look better than the Rangers. So I love when Anthony comes on our show and gives me his crap and attacks me in every kind of, hockey terminology of what he wants to rip on any of the teams that I root for. But with the Mets and the Yankees are playoff bound teams. The problem with the Mets this year, and it's going to be a problem as the season progressively moves forward, is they have a bunch of senior citizens pitching for them. I like Justin Verlander. I like that they brought in a veteran player of that magnitude, and I still think he's a better pitcher than Max Scherzer was when he came to the Mets. The problem with Justin Verlander is he has torn his UCL twice in his career. This is a guy a guy that comes back and is coming back from a tear. He's proven himself to still be an elite pitcher in this league. He was the Cy Young winner for the Astros last year. But here's the problem. The Mets are not the Astros. They don't have the depth offensively that the Astros had last year. And that's the problem with the Mets. They're depending too much on Pete Alonso. Pete Alonso is a streak hitter. He right now, before he got hurt, he was batting .246. That's not going to get it done, especially in the playoffs. As you ask the Yankees and ask anybody on the Yankees are not a batting average team. They're a power hitting team. If you're a power hitting team in the playoffs and you're playing against better pitchers, better relief pitchers, obviously you're not going to hit for average because you haven't been hitting for average all season. And that puts the Yankees in a situation where they're going to fail. I think the Mets are in a situation where I think they're depending now this year on power than batting average. McNeil, who has been one of the best hitters, who won a batting title last year, who got $50 million. Is he hitting the ball like he did last year? He's not. And that's because he got paid. And I've seen players over the years in every single sport, not just New York sports, when they get paid, they're not the same players. Now, you look at Garrett Cole. Cole, he came to the Yankees. He was the, top 3 pitcher in baseball when he came from the Astros?
Nestor, too.
Yeah. Nestor, the funny story about Nasty Nestor Cortez, Nestor Cortez was drafted by the Yankees. He was drafted by the Yankees. The Yankees let him go in free agency. He went to Baltimore. He went to Baltimore for a couple of years, and then he was waived, and the Yankees brought him back up. They brought him back. He was a Brian Cashman guy. So was Garrett Cole, by the way, who was drafted by Brian Cashman too, but he wanted to go back and play for UCLA and college ball, and then he was the number 1 pick for the Pirates. But if you look at Nestor Cortez really started to develop his pitching method last season. And it transitioned. And I think the Yankees used him too much last year, especially throughout the innings when he was like a 5-inning pitcher. He was pitching in certain games 6, 7 innings, and his shoulder started to give out at the end of the season. He did not pitch as well in the playoffs, even though he won a couple of big games for the Yankees in the playoffs, but he was not pitching as nearly as he was in the first half of the season when he was an all-star. And now this year, he's had a lot of soreness in his throwing motion, and his ERA, which last year was at one point under 2, this year it's over 5. So you see the difference and the way the Yankees are depending on him. And I think the Yankees have put him in a situation to fail. And this has been a problem for Brian Cashman and the New York Yankees organization for the last, 30 years, is even when they draft pitchers, they run them to the ground and their arms start to give out. Look at what Jonathan Loizaga, when they drafted him, was going to be a number 1 or number 2 type of pitcher. That's the talent he was. But his arm was used too much in the minor leagues in AA and single A and AAA. When he got called up, he just couldn't pitch the innings. He was a better 1 or 2 inning pitcher than a 3 or 4 inning pitcher, and people were starting to figure him out. And now he's one of the better relief pitchers for the Yankees. But again, this has been a problem. If you're paying pitchers and you're giving them Garrett Cole kind of money, it puts you in salary hell to bring in players that you need to fill in when it comes to your lineup. That's the same thing with the Mets. The Mets have no pitching in their farm system, not what you expect a major league team. Look at the Dodgers. The Dodgers have been good for the last 7-8 years. Go look at their farm system. They have pitchers. They're even giving away pitchers for semi-decent players. They have so many pitchers in their farm system. Listen to this. The Dodgers have 7 pitchers in a top 100 in all of baseball. 7 pitchers. So they can give away a pitcher here. They traded with the Yankees last year, I think with
Haney.
Was it
Haney? Yeah.
Was it?
Haney was great with the Dodgers last year.
No.
Yeah.
There was a pitcher in the minor leagues that the Yankees traded with the Dodgers last year. They got him, and he was the 13th best prospect with the Dodgers.
Oh, okay. No, I don't know.
I forget his name, and he's in the Yankees farm system right now. He's one of the top 5, top 6 prospects for the Yankees. He's pitched very, very well since they got him from the Dodgers, and he was like the 5th best starting pitcher in their minors, and they got him on a trade with another team a couple of years ago.
And there was also in the Nationals trade when they traded for Scherzer and Turner at the time, Josiah Gray, who got traded over there. I know him well because I actually broadcast him in Connecticut with the summer league team he played in. He was, I think, their 5th highest prospect, but he was the number, 50 in all of baseball.
Yeah. So, I don't know are you a Yankees or a Mets fan?
I am a Yankee fan.
Okay, and what do you see with the Yankees as a Yankee fan this year that alarms you? And what do you see with the Yankees that moving forward, going into the second half, you could see that the Yankees will actually play better with their game?
Because they've gotten a lot of new and actually good pitchers, especially Nancy Nestor, and I think that his name is Adam Ottavino. I think that's
he's a Met now.
He's a Met.
He's a Met now.
He's a Met.
Struggling.
And Aaron Judge is already getting back up to the home run record. He's probably not going to break it again, but he has 19. He might make it to like 30 or 40 home runs this year, but probably that.
Well, here's the thing with what's going on with Aaron Judge. Now, I've heard after he ran into the wall, he broke through the wall in Dodger Stadium, there was a lot of conversation that the foot injury that he has is a lot worse than the Yankees are making it out to be. They put him on the IL. They're saying they're not even sure when he will be back. That's how now. If he did get turf toe, now he ran his toe, and that's what it is. If he got turf toe, that's going to be a problem all season long that he's going to have. He's a 5-tool player that plays multiple positions in the outfield, and he does use speed on the pads with his size and his frame. So the Yankees might not have Aaron Judge for the next month or two. I mean, there's no the Giancarlo stand. Did anybody think Giancarlo was going to be out a month and a half from the injury that he had? Nobody did. Now you see Giancarlo comes back, and so does Donaldson, and then you have Aaron Judge. He's out for significant. The Yankees haven't had a full lineup since the beginning of the season, and Volpe, who I think is going to be a good shortstop for the Yankees.
Oh yeah, Volpe's actually a good shortstop. I've seen him make a lot of good plays, especially with his home runs.
I like Volpe too. I think Anthony Volpe is the future to this team. I think the Yankees should send him down.
Yeah.
I don't think he's hitting for average. I mean, he's putting up decent power numbers for a shortstop. He's stealing, enough bases, and his defense is really, really good. But the same thing with Pereza. Pereza got sent down. Look at what he was hitting in AAA. He was hitting over 300. They bring him back up. You have to give this kid. He's the youngest player they brought up from their farm system since Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter when he was brought up with the Yankees was 20 years old. This kid is 21 years old that the Yankees are bringing up. So there's a lot of pressure on this kid to go out there and do what he did in the minor leagues. And I think the Yankees are putting a lot of pressure on him. I'm sorry?
He's only 6 years older than me, 22 years old.
Oh, really?
The Yankees.
Are you from New York?
Yeah.
What part of New York?
Long Island.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And you're a Yankee fan. So what has alarmed you so far in this early season with the Yankees?
Because I'm not really too sure. They've been playing a lot of good games and some bad games. What really surprised me is the plays that they're making. They're making some good plays, or they're making bad plays sometimes, but that's okay. They're going to get back to the top soon. And me personally, as a Yankee fan, a lot of these players and pitchers and everything like that, they look like they're trying harder this season, a little bit like that.
The Yankees bullpen is number one in baseball right now, ERA wise.
They were the number one in ERA and bullpen last year in the first half of the season. And what happened with the injuries? They fell off in the second half because of injuries.
Actually, IKF stole home, and now the score is 3-1. 3-1 Yankees.
Well, I knew the Yankees were going to win this game. I if you listen to our betting segment, they were my fifth selection. I thought that the Yankees were going to win tonight. And it's no offense to the Mets. It has nothing to do with, I don't hate the Mets as a Yankee fan. Okay. I root for the Mets. I go to a lot of Met games throughout the year because I like Citi Field more than I like Yankee Stadium. So I watch both teams religiously. And I think the only problem with the Mets right now, and if you're a Met fan, you should worry, is you have a senior citizen pitching staff. You have Katana, who won't be back until I'm here in July. Yeah. And that means you're pitching youngsters and Peterson and all these other guys that, yes, Peterson looked good in the beginning of the first half last year, and then he got injured. He wasn't the same pitcher. Verlander and Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer pitched last night. He did not look good. Okay. He did not look good. And Justin Verlander has looked good, but he's always looked good against the Yankees throughout this season. This early season, has Justin Verlander made the money that they paid him so far, in the 2 years, 3 years that they signed him? Honestly, no. I mean, Justin Verlander in his, 5 starts, I think his ERA is a little bit, I think it's like close to 3. And his whip is still 1.27 or something like that.
Yeah, he's had 2 bad starts.
Yes.
So that's now in a smaller sample, that's going to rig his ERA. Plus, at the same time, too, he's already missed a month, too. So it's an investment for that much money that you want to stay healthy.
All right, so here it is. He's 2-3, and I didn't even know his ERA was this high, 4.85. And his whip
crazy.
And his whip is 1.33, which is not good for an elite pitcher like Justin Verlander, who, by the way, his whip in the first half of the season was under 1. So it's alarming when you look at players that the Mets are bringing in, veteran players. And I understand Steve Cohen, money is not an object to him, but it should be an object to him when you know that your roster is getting old. This roster, they have some young, but Marte, he's on a little bit on the old side as a baseball player. Yeah. He's a little bit on the older side. They signed Brendan Nimmo. Brendan Nimmo's had a pretty good season. As a matter of fact, besides Pete Alonso, Brendan Nimmo's been the second best player for the Mets.
He's been their most consistent.
Yes. He steals bases. He's a very good defender. He's been hitting for power this year. I mean, there were things that really stood out to Brandon Nimmo. $185 million was a little too much for a guy who has had 2 good seasons as a New York Met. But again, I question the way both of these GMs are working with the Yankees and the Mets. The Yankees with Brian Cashman should be surging and looking for guys that can hit for average. They like switch hitting hitters. Now, there are a couple of good switch hitting hitters right now still in the league that could be available at the trade deadline. Could the Yankees make a move for that? Do the Yankees have enough prospects to make a move for a big-time player of that magnitude? Because their lineup right now, the way it's set up, unfortunately, what's your name again?
Thomas.
Thomas, that's right. And Tom, are you related to Eric?
Yes, I am.
You have a very unique voice, and you sound a lot older than you are. And so I give you you do. You sound a little bit older than you are. But you know who his uncle is? Eric Martini.
Oh, now it all makes sense.
That's Eric Martini's nephew.
There
I'm
we
happy he called. And honestly, with the Yankees and the Mets, there's going to be a lot of questions going into the second half of the season. I think the Mets have a little bit more to worry about. I think the Yankees, with their bullpens, and if you look at the last 3 or 4 seasons, bullpens win championships. It's a fact. And the Yankees bullpen is not 100% healthy. No. They're missing 5 guys. When they get fully healthy, the Yankees bullpen could be even better than it is. So Jonathan Loáisiga is not healthy. He's one of their best bullpen arms. They just got Tommy Canley back. So, and they have one of the more underrated relief pitchers in King. So I think the Yankees are in a position. The question is, do they have enough pitching if Rodon doesn't play this year? Now, his shoulder problem could be a significant injury. I mean, his back problem could be a significant injury. He might need back surgery. So that could be a possible thought on where the Yankees could go at the trade deadline. And also with this lineup, the Yankees need to find a guy that is a switch hitter who can hit for average. They had Aaron Hicks. They decided to part ways with him because he wasn't hitting for them and he wasn't healthy. And now he goes to Baltimore. He's hitting and he's a switch hitter and he's doing all this crazy stuff right now for Baltimore. He's been a big part of Baltimore's success the last 2 weeks. So figure that one out with the Yankees and the Mets. I don't know.
The other problem that the Mets have with the pitching depth in general too is the one young pitcher they have in their rotation is Senga, and Senga can only pitch on longer rests than your average starting pitcher. When he pitches on regular rests, he isn't as good, so he has to wait 5 or 6 days to pitch, which is not ideal for the Mets.
And would you be surprised? And I said this: we won't know what Senga is until next year, because when all these hitters and all the National League and American League teams see him at least once, they're going to know how he pitches. We'll find out what the Japanese player Senga is going to be his second year, because that's the second year where everybody's going to see the way he throws the ball. So, and I said that to you, Speedy. I said I wouldn't be surprised if Senga is the Mets' best pitcher right now. Who's the best Mets pitcher? Senga. So, and the reason why is nobody's seen him pitch. He pitched in Japan for 7-8 years. Right. He's 29 years old. He's a veteran rookie. And now we'll see what he is next year. A lot of these Japanese pitchers, they have one really good year, except Ohtani, but one really good year, and then they fall off. We've seen it. We've seen this many times. So
most notably, Daisuke Matsuzaka.
That was a great play by Volpe, by the way. He just made a pretty good play. 2 outs and saved the run. Saved the run, I guess. Right. So that was a pretty good play.
Hopefully the Mets could finally sit.
Anything else, Tom?
Nope, that will be it.
Tom, keep listening. We really appreciate your call.
No problem.
Tom, Eric Martini's nephew. Nice kid.
The much calmer version of Eric Martini.
He's a nice kid. He really is. And he wants to do this. And anything I can do to help him, and move forward. He's a Yankee fan. And, listen, nobody is perfect on their knowledge. Okay? Even me. I deal with... all the time, I deal with crazy Jeff attacking my knowledge and stuff. And my knowledge is, to me, I don't blow myself up. I have pretty good knowledge in what I'm talking about, okay? And even me, I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect. And that's what makes sports radio so interesting, because you give a different take than everybody else. And your takes, I don't listen to sports radio anymore. From the WFN, ESPN, CBS, and I only listened because I want to see what my competition is, and how does the competition weigh against me and Speedy in our show. That's the way I look at it, and to me, that's the only time I listen to sports radio. I don't want to listen to anybody else's takes, because some of their takes are just outrageous and crazy. And I would disagree with a lot of things they would say. We have a couple more things to get into before we go to our final segment, which we do every single show, Bracket Wars, which we have John Jones versus Michael Jordan, Willie Mays versus Jerry Rice. Dalvin Cook, it seems like this story is a never-ending story. Dalvin Cook says he is in no rush to be signed by any team after being cut by the Vikings on Friday. Cook says he will not settle for a contract worth about $5 million. Cook said on the Rich Eisen show that he will prioritize fit for me and my family, and organization that values him when he does pick a new team. The Dolphins and Broncos were the two leading teams for Cook when he got released. Cook has rushed over 1,000 yards for 4 consecutive seasons. Cook had 1,173 yards, 8 touchdowns last season, averaging 4.4 yards per carry. Dalvin Cook is one of the elite running backs in this league. He is. What scares me about Dalvin Cook is his injury-prone type of mentality. Okay, last year he played 14 games or 15 games. He stayed fairly healthy. That's why I was very surprised that Minnesota was parting ways with him this offseason. I thought they can use him for another year, maybe play him in the first half of the season, has another good first half of the season. You could probably get a second-round draft pick for him. You got nothing back for him. You release him, and you get nothing. I understand his salary is fairly high. I think he was going into the season, he was going to make 13.
Yeah, something like that.
And now he says he doesn't want to make anything less than $5 million. So when you look at some of these teams that could be interested in him, he wants to go to a Super Bowl contender. There was one team, and I know everybody keeps talking about the Broncos. Why would the Broncos want him? They got Williams. Williams is coming back from an ACL. That would be the only reason why, and you have to wait and see what Williams is going to give you in detail this year and what Sean Payton likes to do. He likes to run first, throw second, and his running backs are athletic and can catch the ball in the backfield. Dalvin Cook could do both.
And Sean Payton loves to rotate running backs, too.
So I could see why the Broncos are a team, but Dalvin's not going to the Broncos. The Dolphins are the team. What he is trying to do, he's trying to sit on this. He knows the Dolphins are interested. He's trying to get as much as he possibly can from the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins right now are in salary cap hell. They just paid a defensive lineman a significant amount of money this offseason. Actually, in the middle, after the trade, they paid him $100 million. He's a good player. Came from the Broncos, so we know what he is. Who do we have, Jeff?
Jeff.
All right, put him through in a second.
All right, good.
I think when you look at Cook in the position that the Dolphins could be in going into the AFC East this year, if the Dolphins add Dalvin Cook and they lose Tua for a significant amount of time, you have a running back that's competent. Now, Mostert is a good running back, and he played very well last year. But he had some deficiencies against good defenses up front. He had problems running the ball. Dalvin Cook, you can put him and match him up against any defense in football. He can run on the outside. He can run on the inside. He can do everything.
Mostert's also 30. He's going to lose speed eventually. He's known for his speed.
But Dalvin Cook, how many years? He's 27, 28 years old. How many years? Yeah. How many years does Dalvin Cook have? 2 years? Maybe.
Yeah.
If he stays healthy. He's had some problems. He has some ankle problems and knee problems since he's come into the league. Mm-hmm. So. And I think he had a calf problem 2 years ago, too.
Yeah, he's had multiple hamstring and calf problems in his career, too. And I think that's another reason why the Dolphins and the Broncos are both teams that are favored right now is because they have the coaching staff, and 2, the other running backs to keep him fresh, where they don't have to run him into the ground like we saw Minnesota do at the beginning of his career.
It's very interesting when you're trying to look at all these different teams that might be interested in a guy like Dalvin Cook or Derrick Henry or some of these star running backs. And everybody keeps talking about, hey, Buffalo needs a running back. They added Harris. I completely didn't know last week that they added Harris. Harris is a competent running back who played very well for a couple of years with the Patriots. And now he has a chance to be the number 1 guy with the Buffalo Bills. Maybe Buffalo finds their guy and finds it on a cheap salary. What are they paying him? $4 million?
Yeah, no. Harris is not going to. He only got, I think, 4.5.
I like
3.5.
I like Harris. I liked him when he was drafted. He's an Alabama player, and those Alabama running backs, most of them are successful. I mean,
he was in the same backfield with Najee Harris and Josh Jacobs.
So aren't they related to something, Najee Harris?
Yeah, some kind of cousin. Yeah, some type of cousin or second cousin. Yeah, and they were all in the same backfield. So Damian Harris really didn't get to showcase as much as he could have in college too, but he was always very good.
All right, put him through. Jeff, what's up, man?
All right, you're gonna have to explain something to me like I'm retarded, okay? Right? Because I don't get all this Dalvin Cook talk. I think it's ridiculous. Of all the free agent running backs there are, there's one guy out there that's better than every Hall
Derrick
of Famer
Henry
put together.
You know.
No,
I know where he's going.
Elliott's available.
Zeke
Elliott's available.
Yep. I knew where you're going.
Why would anyone want Kareem Hunt or or Dalvin Cook or any of these other Mark Ingram's out there. Oh, I would know, bum. Mark Ingram, Alabama bum, right? Oh, Dalvin Cook.
He was also like 34.
Right. Well, yeah, right. You're going to have to explain to me like I'm dumb. Why isn't everyone just talking about Zeke Elliott? He's clearly the best player in the NFL.
They must have
How is he still available?
They must have saw his block at the end of the playoff game and said, "No, we can't trust this anymore." The Cowboys are going for trying to audition for the worst play of the year.
I think you're not hearing a lot of Zeke right now is because he's not a number one guy anymore, as he proved in Dallas.
That's not true.
He's not a number one guy.
True.
Well, you didn't prove
That's
it.
not true.
What do you mean
I'm
it's not true?
I'm a veteran of the show. I've been listening a long time.
Yes.
And for years upon years upon years, I was told he was better.
He was better than Barry Sanders.
But isn't just I don't understand why people aren't just trying to sign him. Why isn't there more talk about Zeke Elliott?
Because he's not a number one guy anymore. He's not. And he's not worth 16. What is he making? What was he making last year?
It was $15.5 million, which I think McCaffrey broke with 16. So he was the previous highest paid running back before that.
So, and I think that he's available this offseason, but I think teams are looking at him as a number two guy. And he was interested in going to the Jets. The Jets said no. Did you see what Breece Hall and Michael Carter did on social media when he said he wanted to go to the Jets? They said, no way. Okay. They attacked him on social media. Then he said that, what was the other team that he wanted to go to?
It was the Bengals and the Eagles were the other two.
The Bengals were another team. And I think it was Mixon that came out and said that, that he doesn't have the heart or something like that.
Oh boy.
Or something like that. And he attacked him too.
Imagine the arrogance of these young running backs to not want to learn from the world's greatest running back. Imagine the arrogance. It's incredible. This guy's the best running back to have ever played the game, and they don't want to at least learn from him? That seems crazy to me.
Maybe they just don't want to learn his blocking skills.
I mean, it's outrageous.
I mean,
outrageous.
Think about it this way, though, Jeff. If you want to go, if you're the Jets, the Bengals, or the Eagles, and you're striving for playoff success, would you really want to learn that from Ezekiel Elliott?
Dude, I've been telling you a long time. He's shit. He's absolute shit. But you have one guy that has a complete squirrel brain that would always just tell you he's the best player on the planet.
Well, he was a Zeke fan. He was a Cowboy.
3-1. That's what I need. Come on, I need 2 more.
What are you talking about?
I got the Rangers team total over 4.5, and Marcus Simeon just hit one off the foul pole to get it to 3-1.
The Rangers don't have more than that over yet. Wow, that's surprising. With all the 10-run games they've had this year.
Reed Detmers really pitched a gem, and unfortunately, these boneheads loaded the bases and then struck out 3 straight times to end the bottom of the 6th.
Yeah, you don't see that every day from that offense. They've been the best offense by a good margin this year.
And it was the 3, 4, 5 hitters that did it.
Oh boy! Wow.
And by the way,
go baby! There we go, back to back. Let's go.
By the way,
Let's go.
We were talking in the beginning of the show about the Diggs situation. Supposedly, this story came out earlier today. Sean McDermott reverses course on Stefon Diggs, says the Bills in great spot with star wide receivers. I guess he sat down with Stefon Diggs today, and all that concerns went away. So he was very concerned going into today, and now he's not concerned at all.
What was the problem to begin with?
A lot of people, including me, I thought it was money because of everything that we saw.
It can't be money because he just signed the 3rd biggest wide receiver contract last year.
He re-extended. Yeah.
Right. Like, it's not, that can't be the issue. It has to be like, because Josh Allen made another statement and he was like trying to apologize and say that we need Stefon Diggs or something. I think there's a problem between receiver and quarterback there.
I think so too, because it happened during the playoffs that they said that there was fights going on in the locker room, and him and Allen were behind it. And even on the sidelines, did you see Diggs yelling at Allen on the sidelines? Who was it against? It was in the Bengals. It was against the Bengals. They were screaming at each other. So maybe there is something going on that we don't know. And I know that Stefon Diggs wanted Odell Beckham there, or he heard that that Hopkins was available, that he wanted. Now there are stories coming out in New England that DeAndre Hopkins could be a Patriot by the end of this week. So,
I think it looks like he's gonna be.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. that there's a very good chance that the Patriots could land DeAndre Hopkins, who is a good pickup for them. I really do. I don't know if he's a full number one anymore, but he's good. And you put him over there with a Bill O'Brien type of offense with the running game that they have.
Oh no.
They could be very explosive.
Warning track power. God damn.
They could be very explosive. And by the way, they need a number one there, especially when you're facing
They don't
the
need a number
defense.
one. They have more than enough with what they have, dude. Do you realize what they have? Like, they have a ton there. A ton.
And
like they might not have like a one. They got 4 twos, and they have 2 great tight ends with Gesicki and Hunter. There's more than enough guys to throw to.
I don't trust Juju Smith-Schuster. Okay, I
don't trust them.
All
They
right.
still got Devontae Parker.
They
He's
do.
pretty good.
And Devontae. All right.
They still have Kendrick Bourne. He's pretty good. Tyquan Thornton is a second-round draft pick last year. Looked pretty good. He's all right.
What did Devontae Parker do last year?
Hey, listen, don't do that either. Don't go.
I'm just saying, what did he do?
No,
what did he do?
No. Don't do that either, because the stats
31
are gonna be
receptions,
terrible
539
No. The stats are going to be terrible because they didn't throw because of the terrible Patricia offense and that kind of stuff. So numbers aren't going to tell
I like
you
Kendrick
if he's
Bourne.
good or not.
I like Kendrick Bourne.
Everyone on that offense was terrible last year. Mac Jones was terrible. Everyone was terrible. So don't do that. But Devontae Parker is a pretty good wide receiver. Is he a 1? No, but he's definitely a 2.
I would say Devontae Parker is a 2. I think if you put him in the slot, he's a mismatch.
And so is Kendrick Bourne. And Gesicki is easily a starting tight end in the league. Hunter Henry is one of the better tight ends. They have more than enough to throw to.
Obviously, they don't think that if DeAndre Hopkins is over there meeting the team.
Well, but it would allow them to cut Devontae Parker, who has a fairly decent salary and gets hurt quite a bit.
Yes, and that's what I think they will do. And I think if he gets let go, don't be surprised if the Giants pick him up.
Right, because they have 2 young guys that they drafted that have, look, training camp and whatever, but they look pretty good in Keyshawn Boutte and Demario Douglas.
Yeah, Boute's got a lot of upside too. I could expect that if they get the right coaching with him, with Bill O'Brien, that's a lot they could unravel.
I love Bill O'Brien. I think he's a great pickup for the Patriots. He's been there before. He's won a Super Bowl with the Patriots. I think there's
Bill O'Brien's an underrated coach.
I love Bill O'Brien. I don't think he's a head coach, but I think he's one of the best offensive-minded offensive coordinators the NFL and the Patriots have ever had.
I don't think Bill O'Brien gets credit for doing as good of a job everywhere he's been as what he's done. Think about this. Like, just put this in perspective. Would Penn State even have a football team if it weren't for Bill O'Brien?
No.
He saved that program.
Yep. Yes,
during all the death penalty stuff and like that kind of stuff going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he gets the Houston job, and that was going pretty good until they hired the pastor there. That idiot came from the Patriots. What was that idiot's name?
Easterby? Something Easterby?
He's Jack Easterby. That's exactly a Jack Easterby, who's a moron and not even in football anymore. That's how big of a momo that dude is, right? He's the one that kind of dismantled everything and made him look bad. Then he goes to Alabama and destroys everybody at Alabama.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the dude's a better coach than people think he is.
No, I like Bill O'Brien. I think he's absolutely going to help that offense out. That offense is going to do a lot better this year. They don't have 2 incompetent idiots running.
Well, it can't be worse, right? You're setting the bar low by saying it'll be better.
Oh, it's going to be better. They're going to be able. They had
but they were the 28th ranked offense last year. Of course, it's going to be better.
I understand what you're saying, but I think he's a competent guy that understands how to run an offense. The 2 guys that they had over there last year are just 2 morons. Okay, and they're not offensive guys.
Right. That's why it's also not fair when you go, what did Devontae Parker do last year? Dude, he was dealing with the 2 Make-A-Wish kids running an offense.
Make-A-Wish kids.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not really fair to be like, what are their numbers? Is it? I mean, come on.
All right. So before we get to bracket wars, the Mets and the Yankees are playing right now.
Straight steal of home tonight by Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
Yeah, by the way, it's 3-3, and the Mets tied the game. Mets relief pitcher Drew Smith was ejected in the 7th inning on Tuesday's Subway Series game with allegedly sticky substances. Home plate umpire Bill Miller, a longtime crew chief, said that whatever was on Smith's hand was a sticky and unusual substance. Max Scherzer said, "We're all angry about this one after getting ejected himself for the same issues in April. The Mets have been subjected to 2 out of the 7 sticky substances incidents in the MLB this season. The Yankees have had 2 pitchers as well, Domingo Germán getting caught twice and Clark Schmidt getting caught once. Buck Showalter said, "You ask me what kind of challenge it is." I think that's the kind of self-explanatory. We had to use a couple of situations tonight that we normally wouldn't have. It creates a whole different pecking order that what you're used to or you're going to do. Drew Smith has a 4.18 ERA, a 1.27 whip, and 28 strikeouts in 24 innings pitched this season. I know, Jeff, you texted me stuff today. I know a lot of Mets and Yankee haters out there think that the Yankees and the Mets are a bunch of organizations that cheat. Okay. And that's fine. That's your opinion. That's your prerogative. Good.
It's not an opinion. It's a fact.
What? Why? Because they got caught twice? Just imagine how many pitchers that haven't been caught this year. Just think about it.
First of all, right. Okay. There may be, but that's also a dumb statement because, again, we'll go through this, even though you'll deny it. They check them before every inning. They check them after every inning. So if there was something suspect going on, they would have caught a lot more people by now. So the whole, imagine how many more people are doing it. Yeah, maybe, but it's pretty outlandish the thing to say considering how many times people get checked. And I know that you don't believe they're getting checked.
Jeff, how long has this been going on?
All year?
No. How long
Even last year?
How long as substances being put on baseballs been going on?
For forever. But people have only been getting checked recently.
I understand. So we know that this has been going on for like over 100 years. And I understand that baseball's trying to take control of the game and try to fix the game, and that's great. All of a sudden, they're trying to do that, and we all know that.
It's not all of a sudden. It's been going on for years. Stop pretending. Like
it's been this year. They've taken it to a whole nother level. Okay, it's been going on after the playoffs last year.
Checked for a couple of years now.
I understand that, but they have gotten more strict now than they were last year. There was a lot more. They're a lot more strict, and I understand baseball's trying to. But what happened in the 90s and the early 2000s with steroids? Now everybody, this guy, we're not sure who did it. This guy, we're not sure. He's in the Hall of Fame. This guy's in the Hall of Fame. Why isn't this guy in the Hall of Fame? And this is the problem with baseball. And I understand they're trying to fix the game. They're trying to make the game better. But when you do these things, when it's been going on forever, and with the analytics that they're trying, and Jeff, you're one guy that is not you're not a big fan with the analytics, right? Am I right? Would you say that?
I think it's got its place.
But you're not a big fan of it. You're not a big fan of it, right?
No. I think it has its place, right? I think analytics is a good thing, right? But also I don't let's go back to I'm gonna Speedy will help me with this because I'm gonna botch the year or the championship series or whatever. But just go back to last year or the year before when Blake Snell was cruising in the playoff game. I think it was against the Dodgers
3 years ago, yes, in the World Series.
Right, and he was and he was cruising, and all of a sudden the analytics were like, well, let's take him out in the 5th because the 3rd time through the order it's terrible. Dude was unhittable, and the analytics got way out of hand there because he was in the zone that night. But I also do think analytics has a place. Like take tonight for example with Reed Detmers. Do you know what Reed Detmers has for batting average? First time through the lineup, second time through the lineup, third time through the lineup, it goes from 164 to 253 to 401 the third time through the lineup. I needed the runs. When am I getting them? Third time through the lineup.
Which is a typical climb for a young pitcher for the most part. That's why I don't see that this one.
I'm not knocking him, but analytics has a point, right? So if the Angels manager had a half a brain and paid attention to those analytics, maybe this game would be 1-1 instead of 4-1 right now. Because the numbers would have told you Reed Detmer stinks as soon as the first hitter sees him the 3rd time.
It's the Angels. Their organization only has half a brain.
Right. So, but that's what it is. But you go back with Blake Snell, they should have left Blake Snell in that game. He was absolutely mowing down hitters, and Snell was pissed when they took him out. So I think some people get a little too too far with the stuff, but I think they have a place in the game.
Well, it's the dilemma with a lot of modern postseason strategy too, because we see a lot of times pitchers will use key pitchers in different situations because of the analytics too, and that's why you're also seeing starting pitchers come in and get key relief outings in the playoffs too. In the World Series, you saw Washington do that with Scherzer and Strasburg at the end of those particular playoff games against the Astros too, and I think that part of it ends up being good, but it's tough to tell with every length pitcher because a lot of these young pitchers do not have that same kind of longevity to be able to judge that kind of thing. And that's why it's tricky to judge with young pitchers, especially. It's the same thing in reverse with the Mets. Matt Harvey, they pushed into the ninth inning when they inadvertently shouldn't have in the 2015 World Series the same way, and it blew up in front of them.
And here's the other thing with the analytics too. I think that there's also a half of a reset on what numbers are, just because of the pitch clock, right? You don't like deliberately slow pitchers that now have to play faster and that are out of their comfort zone may have completely different results now, right? Like than they did before. So I think there's not like a full reset. You've got an idea of what's going on there, but like it's just different all of a sudden once you have a shot clock, pitch clock, whatever.
I think the pitch clock will stay. I think a lot of these new rules are going.
Great.
I think
are
a lot
you for it or against it, by the way?
What, the rules? The pitch clock?
No. Yeah, the pitch clock.
I love it.
I think no more 3-hour games. This has been great.
That and the pitchers got to figure out how they're going to pitch against certain players. Obviously, on the way they like to pitch, they like to hold the ball a certain time, depending on the pitch, because it's all analytics. They look at analytics. If a player stays in the box for a certain amount of time, what is their batting average? They look at these analytics, and now the pitchers have 15 seconds to get the ball out of their hands. So and it also hurts hitters too, because they got to go in and out of the box. They can't stand at the box and play with their gloves. How many times did we see this with Johnny Damon and all that other stuff? I'm sorry.
But they can though, because the hitters are manipulating the clock more than the pitchers are.
Yes.
Because the hitter doesn't need to be in the batter's box until 8 seconds, and you're seeing a ton of it now where they stand with 1 foot out and then they'll jump in with 8 seconds left, and it really puts a time crunch on the pitcher.
A lot of players, a lot of hitters have been complaining about the pitch clock and how it has affected their swing. So it's so.
Come on, I need a run here. Let's go, Rangers.
So
I got one out already. This stinks.
I mean, going back to the Yankees and the Mets and the situation that they're in, I think baseball is going to have to, at the end of the season. Listen, I understand what baseball's trying to do, and they're trying to really tighten down on certain rules that they have and alleged rules that they're bringing to the game. They also have to look at the game for what it was and what it has been. And in them doing this, Buck Showalter came out and said that at the end of the game yesterday. So he says, okay, my guy was caught with some sticky substance. And obviously the game has rules and laws now. But he says this has been going on since the past of time. So to sit here and contradict what has gone on in the game of baseball, and now all of a sudden try to change it because you're trying to change the future or the past to the present.
Yeah, but to complain about that is ridiculous, because with the pitch clock and the bases being bigger, the stolen base has skyrocketed.
Yes,
do you know what the numbers are on stolen bases?
It's a lot. I think it's like almost 50 or 60.
The number of attempts have gone up 92%, and the number of successful stolen base attempts now is 79.8%, which is up. Come on, get down the line.
Yeah,
fair ball. Let's go.
I think there's already at least 2 players, maybe more, that already have 30 steals too. I know the kid Ruiz on Oakland does, and then Acuna does.
Right, but they're also not getting caught either.
Right,
because they're stealing at an 80% clip now, when it used to just be a 53% clip that they were successful at.
By the way,
so now it's like
I'm sorry to cut off.
Or you get a single, it's basically a double.
Right?
It looks. You can just take second.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Just so a post came up on the bottom of ESPN saying that Kingsbury might be going back to college football. So Texas A&M.
What, Cliff Kingsbury?
Yes, Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah, he's already in college football.
Yeah, I'm just saying he might be getting a head coaching job with Texas A&M. So he's the next guy. So I just saw that pop up as a lead on the bottom. So.
Well, I mean, he's already got a contract with USC for this year.
Well, I'm just reading off what it said on the bottom. So
That would be quite a big
Right.
buyout for Jimbo Fisher if they end up doing that, unless he has an expiring contract.
I need a base hit here, Speedy. I got a guy on second. Let's go. But to complain about the rules. Oh, the rules are changing now. Yeah, great. A lot of other rules are changing, and no one's complaining about that sort of stuff. How about this? How about stop cheating? Like, it's not that hard. How about don't rub all kinds of shit all over yourself? Vaseline and nail files and spider tack, Kermit's favorite, right? Like all of these things. How about not doing all of these things? It's pretty easy to just go, hey, how about I not spread all this stuff all over my hand? It's pretty easy, dude.
Oh, here
So,
it is.
and to complain about it is ridiculous. Because all you need to do is come on, get up the middle. God damn it.
All right, Jeff. Thank you.
Oh, he's taken first, yes.
All right, Jeff. Goodbye. Goodbye, Jeff.
The throw broke. The throw brought him
We
right
love
off
you,
the base.
Jeff.
I got
We'll talk to you tomorrow.
first and third with one out.
I'll
Let's
talk
go.
to you. Goodbye, Jeff. Oh man, we got to go, but we got to add bracket wars. We're going to do bracket wars, but just so everybody knows, I thought it was so. Here's the story: former Texas Tech coaches Cliff Kingsbury and Mike Leach will headline the inductees of Texas Tech's Hall of Fame and Hall of Honors. The school announced this coming year, so it's not that he's going back to Texas Tech. He is going to be honored as a Hall of Famer of Texas Tech. So is Mike Leach. May he rest in peace. So there you go. So Jimbo Fisher will not be losing his.
I was going to say that's going to be a pretty.
Listen, there's something in front of the TV. I just saw it pop up as a lead story. Okay, so I'm hosting a show and trying to figure out what's going on with all these lead stories and everything like that. Anyways, are you ready for bracket wars?
Yep, here we go.
It's time for bracket.
Bracket.
It's time for bracket wars.
All right, we'll start with the 16-1 matchup. John Jones, the 16 against Michael Jordan.
Wow, this is crazy. John Jones has a 27-1 record in his career, and that one loss was a disqualification. I remember that fight. 10 of those wins were knockout. Jones held the light heavyweight championship belt March 2011 to April 2015, and then held it again from December 18th, 2018 to August 2020. As of March 7th, 2023, Jones is the number one ranked fighter in UFC and pound for pound in the pound for pound ranking. Jones claimed the UFC heavyweight championships March 5th, 2023 against Gane. And Jones has failed 3 different drug tests during his career and has been suspended for over a year combined. And actually hasn't been in mixed martial arts for over 2.5 years before he won the heavyweight championship from Gane. So, listen, John Jones is the greatest UFC fighter of all time, one of the greatest overall fighters in boxing, combat sports of all time. He's only lost one fight. He comes from a very athletic family. Both his brothers are playing in the NFL. You all know who Chandler Jones is, one of the better pass rushers in the league for the last 7-8 years. John Jones is a better athlete than both his brothers. So what he has done for mixed martial arts and what he's done in mixed martial arts is just absolutely ridiculous. Like I said, to compare him to the greatest fighters, the BJ Penns, the George St. Pierre's, to the Fedors, to the, I don't know, you name it, Matt Hughes, all the greats, Anderson Silva. He is the greatest mixed martial artist out of all those guys, and even Conor McGregor, who everybody loves him so much. He's way better fighter than Conor McGregor. So the fact that he's a number 16 seed, I still don't understand it, Speedy. You matched him up against Michael Jordan. That is really a hard athlete to compare him to. So John Jones is the greatest fighter to ever fight in the octagon.
All right, I just want to ask you this because obviously I'm not the UFC expert by any means. How much do you think that the doping violations and those failed drug tests hurt him?
Nothing. He didn't do steroids. No,
I know the first one was cocaine. I forget what the other two were offhand.
Wasn't PEDs.
Okay, so
he didn't do any of that.
Yeah, I didn't recognize the drugs that they were when I was looking it up
Cocaine.
earlier.
He drank a lot. He got caught with drinking, driving, got into a car accident, resisted arrest, been caught with a gun. Stupid things.
Okay. I was just curious how much it impacted.
He didn't do any performance drugs.
Gotcha.
Not that I know of. I did not see anything important performing enhancing drugs that I remember John Jones. I actually, wait a second. He did get accused for performance-enhancing drugs. His last accusation was performance-enhancing drugs. But I remember what was said. Now, he was taking this protein, which has this particular, performance, enhancing drug that a lot of these proteins have that could be found in your
you could
your
hide it in
urine.
the powder. That
Yes,
makes sense,
it could be found in your powder. And it is a proof, and there is stuff that I could prove that to be true. He did get suspended for almost 6 to 8 months for that, for performance enhancing drug. I think that was the last, but I do not believe, okay, it was a performance enhancing drug that should have been illegal in the list of illegal. They have a ton of stuff. They have like 60, 70 stuff that's illegal in mixed martial arts, which is ridiculous.
They want to surpass baseball.
You know what it is? It's because they have to cut weight, okay? And when you're trying to cut weight, you have to, it's not easy. It's not easy to cut weight. When you're walking at 235 pounds and you need to cut to 180, 185, that's 50 pounds. You know how hard that is? And you usually cut that in 15 to 16 days. So you're talking about starving yourself, draining yourself, a lot of cardio, a lot of sweating, a lot of sauna time. It beats the hell out of your body. And a lot of people don't want to go through it. So they take performance enhancing drugs that get you at the weight that you want and you still stay strong. So yes, there was one time I think the accusations was performance enhancing drugs. And I know in a lot of proteins out there in, not just from mixed martial arts, proteins that you use that have these, these drugs that are illegal to take in those proteins. So I agree, and I don't think he should have been suspended for it. That's just my opinion.
Okay. I was just curious because there were a lot of them, and I didn't know if it was any that impactful. That's why I put him lower than Silva that we did last week. That was the only reason.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. You have anything?
No, that was really it.
Oh, so you have nothing with him?
No, I really don't know the sport as well. I just know what you and Warren were saying last week, mainly.
Michael Jordan, who I feel, to me, is the most aggressive, most dominant force in sports history. Michael was a 14-time All-Star, 10-time All-NBA first-team player, 9-time Defensive Player of the Year, 10-time scoring champion, and 5-time MVP. Jordan won 6 championships and was NBA Finals MVP, 6 of them, and never needed a Game 7 to win any of those titles. Jordan was the Associated Press Athlete of the Year in 1991 to 93. Jordan also won a national championship in North Carolina in 1982 and a 2-time Olympic gold medals in 1984 and 1992. Jordan averaged 30.1 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, and 5.3 assists per game in his career in a regular season. Jordan averaged 33.4 points per game, 6.4 rebounds per game, and 5.7 assists per game in his playoff career. I will say this. If Michael Jordan didn't come back with the Bullets, he was averaging almost 34 points, 35 points a game. It dropped almost 3 points. Okay. Michael Jordan, and I'll say this again, it's going to be very hard to pick somebody that's going to beat him head to head. He is the greatest, in my eyes, the greatest athlete in sports history. He is the greatest. When the echelon of top players in their professional sports and comparing them, he is the Muhammad Ali. He is the Tom Brady, Joe Montana. He is the Jerry Rice of his sport. He is the greatest basketball player, greatest all-rounded athlete I have ever seen. He is the best.
And we were discussing it when we were talking about him, Scottie Pippen taking shots at him,
which is ridiculous.
There's no flaw in the man's game. He does everything well. Yeah, people are going to knock, he didn't have the greatest 3-point percentage. Well,
he didn't have to.
He didn't have to. And if he played in an era where they would have needed to, he would have shot over 37% from 3, maybe even higher.
He hit the most 3-pointers in a finals game in NBA history before Steph Curry matched him.
Yeah.
He was Michael Jordan, who's not a 3-point shooter. So just tells you how good Michael Jordan could have been as a 3-point shooter if he wanted to.
And you want to talk about, we were talking about the many different segments of this bracket with influence on the game too. You can't name an athlete that has a bigger influence on the game of basketball than Michael Jordan, worldwide, nationwide, even with his shoes and all that stuff too. In addition to his great accomplishments.
He is shoes. He is sneakers. when you talk about sneakers and dominance of sneakers, Michael Jordan's sneaker is the number one sneaker. It's been the number one sneaker since he came into the league.
Right.
His sneaker, which was the most any sneaker is sold by over $100 and some odd million. Michael Jordan, the first year he came out with his sneakers, the Jordan 1 sold over 164 million. Okay. An average sneaker of a popular player, the Converse contracts with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and all those guys, they sold between $3 and $10 million a year. He sold 164 million his first year. He changed Nike. He turned Nike into a powerhouse. Nike went from number 3 to number 1 in a year. Wow. Okay. That's what Michael Jordan did. And he's the first player in NBA history to get a contract from a sneaker company that gave him profits off of every sneaker sold with his name on it.
Wow.
So that's why Michael Jordan makes $40 million a year from Nike, because of that deal that he had with his mom that made him probably the richest athlete to make it when endorsements of all time. He's still making money off of endorsements all over the country. He owns golf courses, everything like that. All right, who do we have? The number 10 seed, Willie Mays, versus the number 7 seed, Jerry Rice. Mays was 24-time All-Star, 12-time Gold Glover, 2-time MVP, Rookie of the Year, and batting champion. Mays hit 301, 660 home runs, 1,909 RBIs, 3,293 total hits, a .384 on-base percentage, and a 940 OPS. Mays is a six all-time in home runs, 12th all-time in hits, and tied for most Gold Gloves by an outfielder with Roberto Clemente. Mays led the league in home runs 4 times in his career, stolen bases 4 times in his career, and an OPS 5 times in his career. Mays is one of the only 5 players in MLB history to hit 400 home runs and 300 stolen bases. And the other one is his godson, Barry Bonds. So I think Willie Mays is one of the greatest baseball players, one of the top 10 greatest baseball players of all time. I would say top 7 of all time.
I actually think he's the most all around when you look at it skill wise too, because he also, again, great defender too. He stole bases. He did a little bit of everything, and he still had the great home run total. So yeah, he didn't hit 370 something like we were talking about with Babe Ruth. He were 340 or something in his career, but he does a little bit of everything too, and also the influence he had on the game too. For the African American, obviously Jackie Robinson was the first one, but he was one of the other big ones too at that time in New York with the Giants, and then also for expansion in San Francisco too when they first started moving out west. He was a big model for that kind of thing too, the face of West Coast baseball along with Sandy Koufax.
Jerry Rice, who some people say the greatest all-around football player to ever live. Rice was a 13-time Pro Bowler, 10-time first-team All-Pro, won 2 Offensive Player of the Year awards, won a Super Bowl MVP, and was on the all-decade team for both 1980s and 1990s. Rice had 1,549 catches for 22,895 yards and 197 touchdowns in his career, most all-time in all 3 categories. Rice is over 5,000 yards ahead of the next highest receiver, Larry Fitzgerald. Larry Fitzgerald over 100 catches ahead of the next highest receiver, Larry Fitzgerald, and 41 touchdowns ahead of the next highest receiver, Randy Moss. Rice led the NFL in both receiving yards and touchdowns 6 different seasons in his career. Rice had 151 catches, 2,245 receiving yards, 22 touchdowns in the playoffs, and led the 49ers to 3 Super Bowls. I believe Jerry Rice is the best all-around NFL player to ever play the game. He dominated his position for almost 2 decades and was as good as anybody at his position. Jerry Rice, to me, is better than a number 7 seed. I would put him as a number 3 seed. He is as good as anybody we have mentioned besides Michael Jordan.
Yeah, again, 20 years of wide receiver, too, is really going to be tough to top, too, and well-rounded years, too. And even when he left the 49ers, too, he went to the Raiders and still had some success there, too, made a couple AFC championship games there, too. And think about a quarterback switch, too. And in an offense, in Bill Walsh's offense, too, that was more prioritized on short passes, and he still had insane receiver numbers that are never going to be broken. I know the league has definitely shifted that way, but those are a lot of unbreakable records.
All right, so who do you go with the first matchup?
MJ.
I'm going with MJ. It's not even close, and it's crazy. It's crazy to argue that because John Jones is the greatest mixed martial arts, greatest combat fighter to ever fight in mixed martial arts and combat sports, and I can't. It's not even close. So I'm going with MJ too. Rice and Willie Mays.
I'm going to go with Jerry Rice because I think what he was doing is a little harder as a receiver down the road. Now, like I said, the influence of Mays is strong, but Jerry Rice playing 20 years at a high-level wide receiver is just hard to
When
know.
Willie Mays played, there were not many baseball teams, okay? Willie Mays is a great player, but, I mean, how many baseball teams were in the MLB when he was dominant? What was it? 15, 14?
Yeah, they only just started the expansion during his career.
Yeah,
He started in the early 60s.
So it was like 14, 15 teams.
Right, and obviously San Francisco, along with the Dodgers, were the two big teams that started that trend, and he was the face of that along with Robinson and those guys.
Jerry Rice played in a time where corners can hold you, grab you, toss you around, beat the hell out of you, and he still dominated his position. He still was the best at his position in the league. Jerry Rice, to me, is the greatest football player to ever step on a football field, and he still looks good. And his position and who he is as a player, and he's not a cocky SOB. You could see he's not a cocky SOB when he goes out there. When he's introduced at all these conventions and stuff like that, he's a special player. It's Jerry Rice. It's not even close. It's crazy to say that with Willie Mays. Jerry Rice is by far the winner in this connection against Willie Mays.
All right, so Jerry Rice will move on and take on Wayne Gretzky. That's going to be an interesting matchup in the second round.
So we got Jerry Rice and Michael Jordan moving on as the what do we have? The second round?
We have the last couple matchups of the first round are tomorrow, and then we're on
Who do
the
we
second
have
round.
tomorrow?
So tomorrow will be the last UFC guy, Anderson Silva, will be facing off with Pele. That'll be one matchup, and the other one is Mike Tyson versus Mario Lemieux.
That's a really good one.
That's a really good one. Yeah,
That's a really good one. A lot of people can argue about both. And you know, the hockey fans are going to like Mario Lemieux, and the boxing fans and the fighting fans would have Mike Tyson. You can argue how dominant both guys. And I think Mario Lemieux could have gone down as the greatest hockey player to ever play if he didn't have the leukemia and the cancer problems that he was out of the league for 5 or 6 years and then came back and still was a dominant force. So it's crazy. And now he's an owner and he's done so much for the NHL. And Mike Tyson, to me, was probably the biggest and the toughest boxer of all time. Really, in a 5-year, 6-year span, there was nobody that could touch him or could have touched him. Muhammad Ali, Joe Frazier, anybody, Joe Louis, none of them would have beaten him when he was at the top of his game. So, great. It's going to be great tomorrow. As who do we have on tomorrow, by the way?
All right, tomorrow at 9:30, we'll have a longtime offensive line coach. He's coached almost 50 years in the NFL. Jim McNally. He'll be on at 9:30.
Did we ever have McNally on the show?
We have never had him on the show before. He coached with the Bengals going back all the way to 1980, then the Panthers. He was briefly with the Giants, the Bills, and then the Jets as a consultant, and the Bengals most recently as a consultant. So he'll be on at 9:30, and then 10 o'clock returning to the show is our friend from the Cavaliers, Mr. Tim Alcorn, play-by-play broadcaster from the Cavs.
Oh, Timmy's coming on
Yes.
again. I'd love to hear what he has to say about Donovan Mitchell and where this Cleveland Cavalier team is going in the offseason. So be fun. It'll be really, really fun.
Jim and Tim.
We were supposed to have a young 4-star recruit on the show today, Speedy.
Yes, Jaron Shanks was supposed to come on. He's a high school football player from Florida. He's been recruited from many different schools, mostly in the South so far. Not as much SEC yet, but Florida State and a couple of the Big South, a lot of the Conference USA schools have recruited him already.
So we were supposed to have him on. He had a family situation. We will have him on. He wants to come on. He's been actually reaching out to us. He's very excited to come on with us and talk about his high school career and his opportunities as a college player, maybe soon as an NFL player as well. So looking to have him on the show soon too. So we have a pretty good show lined up for you guys at 9 o'clock tomorrow. Thank you to Trevor Pryce for giving us almost 45 minutes. It was a great interview. He is fantastic. He really is. And thank you to Trevor. Shout out to all the fans out there that tune in and listen to us and support us throughout all the social media markets that we use and all the markets that we use, our stream and everything. Keep going into our streamline. That's what we want you to do. All the truck drivers, all the fans out there that tune into us. We really appreciate you guys. I really sincerely appreciate you guys. We will be doing a play-by-play for the Long Island All-Stars versus the New Jersey All-Stars at Columbia University on Friday. We're very excited about that. We really are. I know you are, Speedy.
Oh, yeah.
As he'll be doing the play-by-play. I'll be doing the color, as always, being the crazy lunatic.
Errol's going to give everybody nicknames, pretty much.
Probably, or people, parents throwing things at me or doing stupid things. It always seems to happen. You know what I want to do this year? I want to go out on the sidelines while you're up there doing the play-by-play and just interview some of the players, and we'll go back to you, Speedy.
Are you going to let one of the kids do it?
Yeah, why not? No, I'm going to go downstairs. You'll do the play-by-play.
No, I'm saying, if that scenario ends up happening, are you going to let one of the kids do a transition back to you, Speedy?
No, I'm going to do it.
I'm
going to say, back to you, you pain in the ass.
Yes, I'm sure all the parents are going to love that.
Oh, yeah, well, the parents love me, let me tell you. Anyways, looking forward to that. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Thank you. Keep listening. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Good night.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Hi, this is Terry Crews, actor, former football player, game show host, father of 5, and all-around big dude. I'm also an expert on drama. I know all kinds of drama. There's the good kind that comes with having a house full of kids.